All right, I'd like to bring to order the July 26th meeting of the Tiverton Town Council. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Perry?
Present.
Councilor Cook?
Here.
Councilor Janik?
Present.
Councilor Edwards?
Present.
Councilor DiMederos?
Here.
Councilor Burke?
Here.
Councilor Vieira?
Here.
All present.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to our first live meeting since last February. It's really nice to see you all. Whoever is in town hall right now, I ask if if you're not vaccinated, please wear a mask. If you are vaccinated, thank you very much for being vaccinated. Consent agenda, approval of town council meetings, June 28th, 2021, regular session, Councilor Cook, Perry and Vieira, abstained, absent. Acknowledge receipts and minutes from boards, commissions, committees, Board of Canvassers 3, Cemetery Commission 1, Historic Preservation Advisory Board 1, Personnel Board 2, Town Farm Renovation Committee 9, Open Space and Land Preservation Commission 1. Acknowledge receipt of correspondence, Tiffany P., 3851 Main Road, supported Groundswell Bakery and Cafe, Christine Ryan and Walter Brown, it's the Powered Oyster Farm application letter to CRMC, Robin Martin, suggestions for casino revenue, and Town of Warren, proclamation of International Day of World Indigenous People. Would anyone like to take anything off the consent agenda? Donna?
Yes, I would like to pull 4C2.
Mike?
If we could pull the approval of the town council minutes, that's 4A1, as well as 4B6, the Open Space and Land Preservation Commission.
And Madam President,
Yes.
4C3.
Yep, I was gonna pull that also.
Okay, you knew that. Okay.
No, I'll give that to you though, Joe.
Um,
All right, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the rest of the consent agenda, which would be 4B1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and C1.
So
and
moved.
C4.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Councilor Janik. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Perry. All those in favor? Raise your hands this time, guys.
We're not used to
I'm not
this.
doing roll call. Unanimous. Okay, 4A, Councilor Burke.
So it's a minor typo, but it's the name of a company, so I just want to see that we fix it. It's on page 5. Under item G, the one-year extension of Avenue Enterprise. On the first line, it has Avenue, which I believe is spelled correctly there, A-V-E-N-U. And then on the second line, it has Avenue, like in a street. So just I'd like to move that we correct that.
You got that, Joan? I'm just giving the clerk a moment to, okay. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve 4A
As amended. No.
as amended.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Perry, seconded by Councilor Vieira. All those in favor? I know raising your hands is gonna be, I could go through the roll call, but please don't make me do that ever again. All right, 4B6, Councilor Burke.
So you want to do that, or you want to do the other ones in order? There were other ones, weren't there?
No, 4B6 is the next one.
Oh, I thought, okay. So this is just to bring out a point that we've discussed before, and we had the joint meeting of various commissions. On the second page of the open space minutes, it talks about stewardship project reports and the Fogland Beach cul-de-sac, and I won't read the whole thing, but one of the lines is the picnic tables at the site were repaired. This was apparently done with the blessing of Parks and Recreation. By ordinance, the area affected by this activity is under the jurisdiction of open space, and yet we were not notified. So, just I think that highlights the importance of finding a way to make sure that chairs have an opportunity to communicate with each other, and also encourage chairs to do that. And again, look at, there are some very nuanced roles that each of those committees and commissions play. So looking at the ordinances to help identify that would be important. That's all.
It also goes further to say that they would meet with the town administrator, did they? Or will they? Yeah, we should meet with the town administrator and follow up with him as open space communicated with you.
That hasn't happened.
Okay. Well, if anyone from open space is listening, please do communicate. All right, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve 4B6.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made by Councilor Burke, seconded by Councilor Perry. All those in favor? Unanimous. 4C2, Christine Ryan and Walter Brown, Sapawa Oyster Farm application, letter to CRMC. Councilor Cook?
Yeah, the first page, I looked up information so I could answer her question, which was Christine Ryan and Walter Brown. Please see the attached letter, which I'll read. It seems ludicrous that the town and the state preserve, protect, and try to find recreation areas, open
Down in
space
your microphone,
for its citizens.
just so.
And, all right, when we have a treasure right here in Tiverton, we are ready to hand it over for commercial use. We were dismayed to learn that back in February 2020, there was an agenda item or a request to put on the agenda item by Mrs. Cook that would discuss an MOU between the CRMC and the town of Tiverton. Further, there is a note that the Harbor Commission recommended that town engage in an MOU. What happened? I think I've explained it, but I'll explain it again. The Harbor Commission took a vote on 3/20/20 in favor of recommending that the town engage in an MOU with the CRMC, like Charlestown, Rhode Island has. And I put that on in a 2/3/20. What happened is we had a date, Solicitor Marcello and myself in March, I think it was March 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day, that's why I remember it. What came down is that you weren't supposed to meet anymore because of COVID restrictions. So just recently, I think it was January or February, I got in touch with Michael. He got in touch with the CRMC, a new director. And the director told Michael that there was enough things in place or policies in place that he didn't feel we needed an MOU with the CRMC, with the town of Tiverton. I didn't agree, but I can't make someone sit down with us. So that's pretty much what happened. I hope that answers Christine and Walter's question. Did you want me to read their letter or?
If you'd like.
Okay, I'll just read their letter. Well, we have no objection to aquaculture nor to oyster farms in general. We object strongly to the area where the above oyster farm is proposed to be located. We have lived on Driftwood Drive for 28 years and 15 years. I don't know what the acronyms are. And treasure the beauty and serenity of the Sakonnet River, the Sapawa Marsh, and the fishing area and beach. Our strongest concern is the attempt to make a year-round, heavily used recreation area into a commercial venture with little, if any, notification and no discussion to those who will be impacted. Fishing, swimming, kayaking, hunting, birding, walking, biking, paddleboarding, windsurfing, and kite surfing have all grown and used tremendously over the past 10 years in particular. In addition, the Sapawa area and these activities are open to the public to enjoy without having to pay any fees. To turn this protected area into a commercial development for two individuals flies in the face of logic and does a disservice to the public. The applicants of the proposal said they worked hard to get this development up and running. The fact that they worked hard doesn't mean they should have any priority over current users. Contrary to their claims, they did not talk to people who would be directly impacted. One proponent said there was no conflict because there was no cohogs in the area anymore, but that doesn't negate the number and kinds of recreational uses that are now and have been increasingly evident in the area. Finally, one argument we heard was that there should be a balance between recreation and commercial enterprises, but we have heard no convincing reason why this particular area, a long-standing designated recreation area, should be given over to commercial enterprise, which would inevitably lead to restrictions. I just want to say, if Christine or Walter have any further questions and I didn't answer them, they're free to get in touch with me.
Thank you, Donna. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve 4C2.
Motion to accept the correspondence for 4C2.
Second it.
I have a motion by Councilor Burke, second by Councilor Janik. All those in favor? Unanimous. 4C3, Robert Martin, suggestions for casino gaming revenue. Joe?
Yes, Madam President, Mr. Martin had contacted me and asked that this be read out at the meeting. So if you would
ahead.
like, it's Robert Martin. Suggestions for casino gaming revenue. Number 1, purchase fire truck with cash and save 10 years interest. Number 2, build a recycling center. Landfill will be closed in a couple of years. Number 3, buy and install field lights at Tiverton High School football field, track field. Why not get wooden poles like Henry Lord Field in Fall River? Get them free from the power company. Number 4, landfill cover fund. Number 5, roads, paving, replacement, etc. And number 6, replace tennis courts at Town Farm. That was his request.
I want to thank Mr. Martin for participating and giving us his suggestions. All suggestions will be considered by the town council. Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve 4C3.
So moved.
Second. I'll second
Motion's
that.
been made by Councilor Perry, seconded by Councilor Janik. All those in favor? Unanimous. Public comments.
Madam President, before we get to that, Madam President, could I make a motion to move item 9A, State Representative Edwards' brief presentation and discussion regarding Watuppa Pond collaboration with Fall River and Westport and outflow from Stafford Pond to the front of the agenda?
Second.
Motion's been made to move 9A forward by Councilor Burke, seconded by Councilor Perry. All those in favor? Representative Edwards. Yeah, I know, it's hard to get in. You gotta get in that way, I guess. Yeah, or do limbo, Jay. I'd sing the song. You can do it, Sal.
Evening. Thank you for hearing me on this. This is a proposal that came to me from Representative Paul Schmid, who is the Massachusetts representative in the district that borders mine, District 70. This is a 3-town city plan that incorporates a watershed issue between Westport, Fall River, and of course Tiverton, because Tiverton is the watershed for both Watuppa Pond and the water downstream of the Stafford Pond. It is a grant program. We're not coming to you looking for money. We're coming to you looking for the town to be able to receive money, and it only works if all 3 towns are involved. So the town, I've talked to both the Stonebridge Fire District, I've talked to the North Tiverton Fire District, and I talked to Councilor Burke about this. I think I've talked to you as well, Madam President. But this only works if all 3 cities and towns collect the money for the grants. Tiverton would collect an equal amount with Westport and Fall River. There is no outlay from the town of Tiverton. There is only receiving and spending the money from the grants to keep the water clean in Tiverton, so that any water that goes downstream into Watuppa Pond in the Watuppa Pond watershed would continue to be clean. They're having a major problem, as everyone knows, in South Watuppa Pond. They have the algae blooms. This is a major problem. It is Fall River's major source of drinking water. And North Tiverton derives their drinking water from Fall River, as well as Stafford Pond. So it behooves the town of Tiverton to become a party to this agreement to help clean up the watershed. And if you have any questions, I've only had discussions with the various water districts. I'm sure there's a lot more information you need. I came to you tonight so that you could start to think about it. If you have questions, let me know. I can get the appropriate parties before the council. But I wanted to make sure this got before you now, especially with the issues that the city of Fall River is having with South Watuppa Pond.
This has to be signed by when day? Is there a deadline on this?
Actually, you're a little ahead of the curve. Fall River is the only entity that's actually signed the agreement yet. Westport hasn't even gotten it before their selectmen. And Representative Schmid is working on getting before the Westport selectmen group.
So late August, early September would be sufficient?
I think if you get your information in and you get your questions answered so that you can make a decision by Labor Day, I think would be good.
Any questions from the council?
Yeah,
Councilor
I do.
Janet?
South Watuppa, I don't think that's a drinking water. I think it's North Watuppa that does
It is
drinking water.
North Watuppa, but it also feeds into it.
But they feed, right?
They feed into each
They
other.
feed.
So they're afraid the algae is going to migrate from south into north.
Yeah, it's really, really bad this year. And I grew up there, so I'm used to it. Bad at this time of the year, but I guess it's really even worse. So what is a negative for us? Like, why would we not want to do this?
Listen, you have a solicitor, you have a town administrator. It's for them to go through this and to find anything that could potentially be bad for the city. Okay, I look at it as,
Free money.
I was asked to bring this before you from my colleague on the other side of the state. So I figured I'd bring it in. It didn't look bad to me, but I'm sure the devil's always in the details, Counselor. So if you need any more information, this is a very, very vague agreement. I read it through. I've seen much better legislation that I have not signed on to.
Yeah, I think its purpose is a good purpose.
Yeah, I think you got to read.
You gotta read
Everything,
through it, right? I think
That's why we pay a solicitor,
yes,
right?
absolutely.
And I would reach out to Fall River. They seem to be the driving force here. Westport and Tiverton are more of the watershed entities. Fall River is the end entity. But we also, like I said before, North Tiverton derives the majority of their water from Fall River. So it behooves us as a community to keep our water safe and to keep it drinkable as long as we can.
Why haven't you signed on to it?
Pardon?
You said you hadn't signed on to it. Is there a reason for that?
No, it has nothing to do with me. This is not a state issue. This is between the three communities.
No, that was regarding any other legislation that
Yes,
he may
that was
not have
equally
signed
vague.
on to, but was written well.
Mike,
I just have a suggestion.
I just have, they mentioned Stafford Pond and South and North Watuppa. But in some of the wording with the algae control, they don't specifically say Stafford Pond.
No, but
that's-
Stafford Pond does have an issue with algae,
Oh,
and they've been spending a
absolutely.
lot of money on it.
Absolutely, it's a problem every single year, and we know that. It's just that it doesn't say that in here. It doesn't specifically say
Well,
Stafford Pond.
That's why you have a
That's
solicitor?
Right. And there's a couple of places where they mention Watuppa, but they're not including the other ponds. So, yes, so I think it does need to be looked at. Mike?
That's why agreements get modified.
It's really, they call them amendments.
If you want this in the form of a motion, I can, but
Yes.
I would move that we refer this to the solicitor and the administrator for review and recommendations, as well as if the administrator could reach out to the 2 water districts to get their written feedback to us, and put it on our agenda for the last meeting in August. And make sure they change Board of Selectmen to Town Council.
Yes, I did notice that.
Well, it's a Massachusetts thing. That's what it is.
You might also want to have someone reach out to Fall River and maybe Westport, but Fall River is definitely the driver here.
Is that a motion, Mike?
Yes.
I'll second it.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Joan, do you have the motion? Okay. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks for getting me in early.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
You have 9 people.
All right, so where was I? Public comments. Are there any? I don't see any over there. But there is someone raising their hand, so come forward, please. Thank you. You're welcome.
I assume name, address.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
First of all, I just moved into Tiverton, so you're gonna find I attend a lot of meetings. And you're gonna find that I give my input,
Name and address, please.
and I'll give you that.
Okay.
Name's John Quirk, Quirk. I live at 1974 Crandall Road, Tiverton, Rhode Island.
Welcome to Tiverton.
02878.
We all have the same zip code.
What is that?
We all have the same zip code in Tiverton. Did you know that?
Yes, but I wanted to be complete.
He's almost in Little Compton.
Now, I'm an engineer, so you gotta understand with engineers, you're gonna get all the facts and all the information. That's how we operate as people. My question right now is, I'm sure you're aware about 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, for about 6 weeks before that, Comcast in the area I'm living in, if I was lucky to get 2 hours of internet.
Cox.
That's Cox.
Cox.
Oh, I'm sorry, Cox.
No, it's all right. I was
Comcast is
hoping you
across
had
the border,
Cox.
I
Yeah.
I had AT&T,
Well,
but
you had
Comcast, I had
Comcast.
everybody. I'm sorry, Cox. A day. I probably lost over $50,000 in business during that time. I'm just asking if any council person had any discussions with Cox on this matter and where it stands.
So we have ongoing discussions with them, and what I've told people, and I'll let, please send me an email, so I have your information that I can pass on to them, what your issues are, whether it's with internet, cable, telephone, all the above, and your best contact information, the name that the account is in, and I will send it on to the folks that I've been working with at Cox. Have they been able to fix everything? No, but they've been doing major work, and I'm not an advocate for the company one way or the other. I'm an advocate for trying to get people's problems fixed as best as I can. So they've been doing major work, and Stafford Road is one area where I know they're continuing to have issues in doing work.
Okay, well, I've sort of already done that. I called their corporate office. I talked to their vice president of operations out there, and I also talked to their engineering department. And they said, yes, we're aware we got a significant problem. I also contacted the Federal Communication Commission and reported them to the Federal Communication Commission. So I've probably done everything I can at this point. Outside of, I did tell them that I thought the people that were affected should be getting some sort of rebate. And they said that was under discussion, but I haven't heard anything since then. The account isn't in my name, it's in my sister's name, because I take care of the house there when she's in Colorado. So I'm glad to see you at least got in contact with them.
Yeah, so if you want to pass it on, I will still pass it on to them
Okay.
and see. And Again, one thing to be clear is we.
That's why I was sort of confused, because I don't pay the bill, to be truthful with you.
Well, and we have no authority over Cox. The authority is through the state, PUC, and even internet is not necessarily, I don't believe, I think it's mostly the cable and the telephone that's through PUC. I don't know that they oversee internet services.
Yeah, I did learn that, and I was under the impression, and I apologize for that, that each town had a contract with them, and I found out that's not the case.
Unfortunately,
Other states do it that way, but
Yeah.
not in Rhode Island.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much for listening
Thank
to
you.
me. You
no.
see my
Thank you.
face,
Welcome to town.
Yes, welcome.
on a regular basis when I'm not taking care of my grandchildren. You probably see me. And thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you, Mr. Webb. Okay,
When you do that, can I ask a question?
sure.
Is the pair of people here? I'd like to make a motion that we move 9B forward, so we can get the pair of people done and out of there.
Yep,
Tim and Rick.
well,
Tim and Rick.
do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
9B.
It's the landfill and.
Pause here. So I have a second. All those in favor? Rick? So the DPW director will be here. Yeah, I don't know.
Just coming in very late.
How you doing?
Tim. So it's just something to go by when he's speaking.
Okay.
I can see he grew a beard
We
too
have-
during COVID, huh? He grew a beard too. Yeah, good man.
So, Tim, thanks for coming.
Sure.
Council really needs kind of an update as to where we are, where we've been, where we are,
Sure.
where we're headed. It's just a 10,000-foot view level, unless they have other questions, but I know that our license has been granted.
Correct.
For the extension, and that we're now on to the recycling, but they still need information about where we are with the landfill, what's our exposure, what we're looking at,
Sure.
and what's the process that we need to do to complete, to comply with the.
And the closing for the landfill has to be by what date now?
So the landfill has to be closed. The last load of trash can be accepted on November 30th, 2022.
So we have about a year. A
A
year
little
and a
bit,
half.
Yep. Yep, it was 2 years when we started the process.
It'll go very quickly though.
It was a long process. So,
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
sure. So, happy to give you guys an update. We've been busy the last year with the landfill and with the recycling center. I'll just give you a quick recap on the landfill, and then I'll tell you about the recycling center. So back in November, I'll start back in November 2020, we submitted the new operating license to the DEM, right? An application to renew the license for another 2 years. There's quite a bit of back and forth after we submitted that initial application, including updated permitting documents back in January of 2021 and in March in 2021. And we received the permit, the approval as of June 25th, 2021. In the request, we did request a 2-year extension. And at the time, like I said, when we put it in, that was 2 years. But here we are, end of November 2021, when we got the approval. It's now about a year and a half. Now it's actually about a year and 3-4 months that we have remaining. As part of that process and in conjunction with that process, we had to redesign the cap a little bit to fit another 2 years worth of solid waste. So that required modifications to the permits that we had already received from DEM, specifically our stormwater permit and our wetland permit. So back in December of 2020, we submitted a revised permit, not the entire permit package, but pieces of it that they needed to see. That was submitted, like I said, back in December 2020, and we received approval from the state in April of 2021. So at this point, we have all the permits we need from the state to begin the capping project and to continue to operate through November 30th of 2022. Okay, so that's where we stand on a regulatory basis for the landfill. So what are our next steps? So as it pertains to closing the landfill, it's a requirement of the license renewal that we begin that process right away. And so we will be ready within about 2 to 3 weeks. We will be ready with a bid package to go out on the street to begin the bid process for selecting a contractor that will actually start the capping project. Okay. So we expect that to go out to advertisement the week of August 16th. The bid process, we expect to take about 45 days. All right, so we're going to advertise. We'll have a pre-bid meeting with interested contractors. We'll answer questions during that period, and then we will receive and evaluate the bids that are provided. We expect that the bid review process and the award of the contract will take about 60 days once we receive the bids. And that construction will begin about 30 days after we make an award. Right, that'll be a condition of the award that they have to start within 30 days of getting the contract. So that's going to put construction start right around the end of the year. Right, it's not a great time to start construction, but there are things that they can be doing towards the end of the year to prep for spring. Start getting some of their stormwater controls in place. Start working on some of the stormwater basins. So there are things that they can be doing with an anticipated spring. Really start in earnest in the spring. We expect that construction is going to last into the middle of 2023. It is a phased construction project. We're not doing the entire landfill all at once. We've broken it up into 4 phases. So we're going to begin phase 1, obviously, first. We're going to move to phase 2 and then to phase 3. The last phase, which is phase 4, that's the area where they're going to be filling up until November of 2022, right? So that's the last area that they're going to fill, and that's the last area that will be capped, right? And we expect, like I said, that to begin towards the end of 2022, right after we're done filling there, and be complete right around the middle of 2023. So the cost, so our last cost estimate for closure was about 10.7 million. Now that was done back in November of 2020. We had to update it as part of the operating license renewal. For those of you who follow, really those of you who spend any money at all, understand that the cost of things are going up right now. There's a lot of volatility, particularly in the commodities markets, which controls things like plastic. This is going to be a plastic cap, right, on top of this thing. So there's some uncertainty here in the actual cost of the closure, but as of 2020, November 2020, we expect it to be about 10.7.
You're thinking more about $1 million.
We're thinking it's probably going to be
11 million.
Yeah, 11 million, maybe a little bit over 11 million at this point.
So as part of that capping cost, construction costs of actually a firm coming out and doing.
Yep.
Is there any cost associated with your computations or overseer of that?
Yes. So in that cost estimate, that includes engineering services during construction.
But it's in that cost estimate.
It's in that cost
approximately
estimate.
around 11 million.
Correct. Yep. That includes engineering during construction.
Now, what do we have in that account now?
9.9 million.
I'm doing better than I thought.
They're over 10 by the time.
So by the time, so we'll probably need about $1 million here. Is that what you figure?
Yeah. We'll have some other revenues coming in, obviously, to help mitigate that. But something we need to know as we look at the American Recovery Plan, our gaming monies and other assets that town has to help mitigate this cost, that it's not, that we don't have to go out to bond for the balance.
Well, if we have 9.9 million now and we still have a year.
Yeah, we'll generate some money. I'm not sure exactly. I think we generate about 400 to 500,000 a year. something like
Yeah,
that.
I used to know that, 400 a
Yeah,
year.
but it's,
So we're gonna need close to $1 million to complete this entire project, which is very important for you all to know when we decide on what to do with several of the accounts that's out there. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
okay, not at all.
This is one of the reasons why I wanted you here.
So,
Okay.
so that's my last bullet is on the cost on the landfill. So before we move on to the recycling center, are there any other questions about the landfill, about the closure?
so will DEM have any other input as it relates to the closure plan, or is it something that will be modified as we go through it? Or-
It shouldn't have to be modified as we go through it. They've reviewed the updated closure plan that we put together as part of the extension. They've reviewed all that. They've approved it. So at this point, we're not seeking any additional approvals from DEM.
Will the recycling portion of this have to be out of there by November 2022, or Do we have a little grace on that?
There may be a little bit of grace on that. As long as, the way it was explained to me by the DEM, as long as the recycling operation up there does not interfere with the capping project that's happening at the same time, the DEM doesn't really, they don't mind if the recycling is happening up there. It just can't interfere with the capping project.
Will that be a problem, Rick?
It is unknown right now because we're not sure, what travel access you're gonna need to get to the recycle center, et cetera. And where the contractor will wanna be doing his work and his staging. You don't wanna hinder and get a more expensive addition, right? A claim that we're slowing down his work.
So it's safe to say we should have the recycling done by November 2022, or even
It's
early
much-
fall.
Much safer.
Okay.
So before we actually get into the recycling, I have some great admiration for Tim, his staff, and also DEM for stepping up, because this was a big lift on their part.
Absolutely.
Director Coit was absolutely on board with what we were trying to achieve. I know there was a lot of work from PAR to get this thing done, and there was a lot of input from the DEM staff, and it wasn't always as easy as it's laid out to be, but it was a big lift, but for both, all three of us parties put this together, it wouldn't be where it is without this.
That's right. Thank you.
Any other questions about the landfill? No. You can go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to the recycling center. So again, I'll tell you a little bit about where we've been and then what the next steps are with the recycling center. So back in May of 2020, so we're going back well over a year now, we submitted our approval to the state for the recycling center. Now, the only approval we need from them was for stormwater and for wetlands. The Office of Waste Management, well, it's formerly the Office of Waste Management, they don't oversee recycling. That's not under their jurisdiction. So we only needed stormwater and wetlands. So we submitted that permit back in May of 2020, our stormwater permit. Back in June of 2020, a month later, we submitted our wetland permit to the DEM. And then in September of 2020, we got comments back from the DEM, and we began responding to some of those comments. Although at the time, there were some discussions with the state about whether or not they were going to roll in the recycling permits with our landfill closure permits, because they understood that the two were really intertwined. But they decided, hey, we don't actually have jurisdiction over the recycling piece of it, so we're not going to commingle the two. We're going to keep them separate. So that's where we left off in September of 2020, with a little bit of a question mark there on the permits. But we now have that resolved. We are now going to be submitting our final permit package to the state, essentially our response to their questions about the package. That will be going in by the end of next week. We expect, based on the comments that they asked and our responses, we expect that we should have their final approval for the wetlands and the stormwater permit probably by the end of August of this year. Once we get their final permit back, we will take essentially what are about 90% drawings. When we submit to the state for permitting, we submit, about 90% drawings, because we know we're going to get comments back. To take those to 100% to bid ready, we expect that will take the better part of September, and that this will be ready for bidding in October of this year. We will bid this October of this year through part of November of this year as well, with an expected contract award sometime in December of this year. So you can see these are moving in parallel.
Yep.
The landfill closure and the recycling center are moving in parallel here. The start of construction, we expect that one to start in in spring of 2022. There's no reason to start that one in the winter and complicated by winter conditions. That one will start in the spring of 2022. And that one is a much less complicated project to construct. So we expect that one to take somewhere in the 6 to 12 weeks to construct. The current estimates, and these are the estimates that we had put together back in March of 2020. So to build the recycling center, back then we had estimated to be about $565,000. And then the cost to build the road C, we call it, to be about $161,000. After we put those together, it was requested that we add a water main and some overhead electric down Road C. And so we put the cost of that back then at about $260,000, which is a total of $825,000 for that project.
Which will also help the other properties in in that area because we'll have, it'll be part of the
Yeah,
infrastructure.
you'll have a road, you'll have water, and you'll have electric already run down there.
Which is gonna make, those pieces of land more favorable to sell.
It'll be a gravel road, Denise, but yes.
But still.
Much better than it is now.
But we will actually have water
Yeah.
and electricity.
And paving is expensive, but it's more or less the easiest thing to do. So it's much more attractive to anybody looking at sites.
We could eventually pave that.
Oh, yes.
So,
To remind everybody, the thought was on leaving it gravel, one, it saves cost, but
Yep.
also in the future, if other businesses come onto that road, they may have to run sewer, they may have to run gas for their own businesses. We don't need that for the recycling center. So why pave the road just to
it'll
have
be
them
much
rip it
easier
up?
to do it with gravel.
Exactly.
Now, the infrastructure money that we have could go for this.
Some of it is,
Yeah, the resolutions. How much do we have?
I don't know, but I think it's gonna be shy of what we're looking at.
Not that much, Shida. Well, maybe
We're
I'm
talking
wrong.
161,000, another 280, I don't.
Yeah, you're right. But at least that'll be helpful for that.
But again, we still have some other funding sources that may be available.
Yes,
And if we sell some property, which also,
it goes into that fund. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And I do want to caution on this one, just like with the landfill the landfill project,
prices are.
prices are going up. These were costs that we had put together back in March of last year, which seems like eternity ago. So we should expect higher prices.
Is there any work that DPW can do to save cost?
There's not a lot of work we can do. We can do some clearing, but we're not really equipped to take down trees.
Okay.
We can spread gravel, we can do some excavation, all those things would require DPW to rent equipment.
Yep.
You'd have to have
Okay.
an excavator, you'd have to have something to haul out. Maybe anything there then.
We're probably not saving anything there.
Well,
Now, we
not-
have put some money into the recycle center, I believe, right? Yeah,
I thought it was 100.
We did, but then I think we took it out because when the pandemic hit, I froze all that
but
spending.
didn't we take it out of?
No, we froze it, we didn't spend it, that just means it on the general fund. We didn't preserve it. Put it as a
We didn't take it out of capital this year, some amount, we talked about
We
it.
we did, but then again, at the very end of the budget season,
We decided
the
to
only
take it out.
piece that wound up being in the budget is $50,000.
Okay,
I'm a little nervous about it.
okay, so we need to keep this in mind too, guys. All right, as far as going, you're saying the landfill, you want to go out to bid in 2 weeks, somewhere August 16th?
2 to 3 weeks, yep.
Okay, so we'll have to put that, right, Mike, on our agenda so we can approve to go out to bid. Mike Marcello, I knew you were listening.
Sleeping over there, I'm like,
So,
It would need to be on the August 10th agenda.
right, so we need to remember that. So August 10th, we'll have to have an item to go out to bid, to approve to go out to bid. Yeah, authorized to up. Yeah, it's just little technical things. That's what and the same thing will be for the recycle center.
Okay.
Once you, decide to
Bid
go out for
documents are-
bid.
Once those bid documents are ready for the facility.
Yes, so we'll put that on the August 10th, okay?
Okay.
So that we could go out to bid. Because if we don't do that, someone's always watching it. We have to dot every.
Thank you for that, Denise. And a question would be, do the bid documents have to be complete? I would think no, but.
No, it's,
So we're authorizing you to go out to bid.
Yeah.
So we don't usually approve bid documents.
no, just the authorization to go out for bid in case we have any questions or, yeah. But you do need our authorization.
Oh, definitely.
So I'll put it on the August 10th.
Okay, for both, since they're not that far different.
Do you want me to do it
times
for both?
landfill
Okay.
And for the recycling.
Okay. I have this little pages of stuff that needs to be done that,
Thank you.
okay. So we'll, out for bid for both. And Joan will remind me.
And in order to go out for bid, we do need the complete specs. So if you're going out the week of the 16th, we'll need
You'll need the
complete package.
Oh, yes, to go out to
Yep.
bid,
Yeah.
but not to get approval.
Not the authorization.
Right.
Yeah.
Not, yeah,
Thank
not
you.
the authorization.
Thank you.
Anything further?
That's all I have.
Okay, so
Unless you
we have questions, Mike?
Just a quick question. I've had some folks ask whether, and I know that this was decided years ago by a former council, but, people have asked, but I think I know the answer. So if we could possibly look at other sites in the industrial park for the recycling center. But based on, all this work is based on the current site. So if we
Correct.
were to want to even consider that, we'd be throwing a lot of money away.
If
We
we were,
looked-
we would have to.
This
I'm
took
not-
like months.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm not saying we
And
would be
time.
starting at the starting block, but we would have to go backwards in time quite a bit to
I
reevaluate those
just want
sites.
us to be clear on that.
Yeah, and the three of us were on that council, and we looked at
Yep.
various sites, and this was the site that was most favorable to both of
Correct.
you, and the less money to get this done.
As the saying goes, that if somebody came along and thought that that particular site was so valuable to them, that it made it worth, losing the money that we spent, because we make up for it in the cost of purchase.
But there was a reason for that, access to that
Mhm.
site. There was many reasons why that site was more favorable. Less work.
Yeah, we looked at quite a bit, within the within the industrial park. We looked at essentially 3 clusters of sites. After reviewing all of the sites, we really focused on 3 clusters of sites. And this particular one was the easiest to work for us, the least cost. The other, one of them had a lot of rock, one of them was harder to get to. So we really focused in on this one.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the council?
I don't have a question, but I'll make a comment.
Sure, go ahead, Jay.
Okay, so after this presentation, everybody should be fully aware that any further delay is going to get very expensive. It already has increased on the overall cost of this whole project. So, we got some momentum here. We cannot dawdle.
We need to move forward.
Understood.
All right, anyone else? All right, thank you so much. It was really
Thank you, Tim.
informative.
Happy to do it.
Thanks, Greg.
Rick, it's good to put a face to the blank picture. Because I don't think we met in person before.
Thank you.
Tricky, that leg.
Okay, public hearing advertised. That's where I am, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So the first one is Jane Ditto, Evelyn's Drive-In, Singing Out Against Hunger, 2335 Main Road on Sunday, September 12th, 2021, from 12 to 9 p.m. Approval of sound variance and approval of special event license, subject to meeting all legal requirements. As I said earlier, these public hearings were advertised on Zoom. If anyone in the public would like to participate, they could call the toll-free number 877-853-5247, audio only, and enter the following information: meeting ID 83110158669, password 5606338. To participate visually with audio, you'll need to log into www.zoom.us, meeting ID 831-1015-8669, passcode 5606338. I don't see Jane or Dom here, but I do see Lisa from Coastal Roasters. I don't know if you're here to represent them also.
I can, yeah, I know they had to work, so I'm not sure if they were gonna try to get.
Yeah, and they
in on
looked really
Zoom or
busy
not,
when I
but-
went by there. too.
Yeah,
So I don't believe they're here, right?
No, no.
Okay.
Ms. Brito called and said she couldn't make it tonight.
Yeah, well, Lisa knows exactly what's going on. So Lisa, same as usual? It's one day.
yeah, so that is unusual, because it's usually a weekend at Evelyn's.
Okay.
But with,
With COVID and everything
with
that's going
COVID
on.
and everything, we kind of just decided to try to have dates this season, and so with the short time frame.
Okay. At this point, I'd like to open the public session. Anyone in the audience would like to speak on this subject? Anyone?
This is just on Evelyn's right now.
This is just on ambulance. We're just gonna do separate.
Yep.
Anyone on Zoom or anyone that would like to dial in?
If anybody's on Zoom would like to speak, please raise your hand.
Singing Out Against Hunger. So it's an event that's held in Tiverton. All proceeds go to the food banks locally. Bands participate, I'm talking about, bands participate for free and play all day long. There's raffles, there's silent auctions, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on. It's at Evelyn's all day. It's a really fun thing to do. I'm involved in the event. That's why I'm speaking of it right now. I've been involved in it for years.
It does say on here 18 years.
18 years I've been involved.
Well, it says 18 years that the
I
event has
probably
been
have
held, and
been
you
involved
probably have
18
been.
years, yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't look over 18.
No, yeah, I probably have been. I was wondering like where it said Denise was involved, okay. Anyone in the audience, one final call? I don't see anybody. Okay. Any questions from the council?
One question.
Yes.
And Lisa, I don't know if you know the answer to this on Jane's application. They have rain date, but they don't have a date. They have Sunday 9/12 is the event. And then in a box, it says rain date. So are they not having a rain date? Do you know? Okay.
I don't know, to be honest with you. I think we kind of decided no on the rain date, and maybe that's why it's blank.
Okay.
They're a little hard to know.
Rain dates are difficult for the bands.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve Singing Out Against Hunger at Evelyn's Drive-In on 9/12, is it?
Yes.
Yes.
21, hours of
12 p.m.
Tonight.
PM to
p.m.
9.
p.m.
Yes.
Can we approve the sound ordinance and the special event all at once? Okay, so this is for the sound, approval of sound variance and approval of special event license subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilor Edwards, second by Councilor Perry. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Next is Lisa. Coastal Roasters Singing Out Against Hunger, 1791 Main Road, on Sunday, September 26th, 2021, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Approval of sound variance, approval of special event license, subject to meeting all legal requirements. Lisa, same thing, right?
Same thing, nothing different happening, but we'll have a few artists, table with raffles.
So I'd like to open the public hearing. Anyone on Zoom, anyone who'd like to call in, our toll-free number is 877-853-4247, and enter the following information: meeting ID 831-1015-8669, password 560638. If you would like to participate on Zoom, go to www.zoom.us. Meeting ID 831-1015-8669, passcode 560638. Would anyone in the audience like to comment? Okay,
If there's anybody in the attendee room on Zoom that would like to speak, please raise your hand.
I feel like I'm running 100 things here.
There's nobody, Madam Clerk, Madam President.
Madam Clerk's interested too. Any other questions from the audience or comment? Give it a couple more seconds, see if anyone comes in. This will be the last time we have to do this, but it's just that these were advertised previously. Hopefully, as long as COVID stays where it is.
Top of my head.
Knock on wood.
This will really miss it.
Okay, so I'd like to, I'm going to close the public hearing. Any comments from the council?
There is no rain date, I take it.
No rain day,
Okay.
no.
I'd like to,
We, move to approve it, but require a detail.
they always have details, right? Well, There's always details at Evelyn's, but there's not a police detail ad.
Yeah, Evelyn's always has a detail that starts, I think, you know, when the sun goes down. And we've never had one at Coastal before.
Do you want to?
Well, my only concern is we all know what it gets to be like in that neck of the woods. And if there's a crowd, it's worse.
The police
It
chief's here.
does end at 2.
Yeah, it does end at
It ends
2.
at 2 in the afternoon.
The police chief did
I did recommend that.
recommending details on both of
Yeah, the
these.
police chief is hiding back there, but I. Patrick, you want, yeah, yes, please.
It's just that on a normal day, with people, you know, running across the street and all that. And today when I was coming here, I followed some clown doing 40.
So, good evening. So as far as obviously the Evelyn's, given that there's no crosswalk and it's right around 177 and it gets dark and it's the length of the night, clearly a police officer there with a cruiser is warranted. As far as down the road at Coastal Roasters, what we usually do is we'll just have an officer go by and check. So we'll keep an eye on it, usually, and we've never had a problem.
It's costly for this too.
Right. Yeah, the on-duty officers take care of it.
At Evelyn's, if you've ever been there at night when it's going on, we do need somebody there. There's no crosswalk, people running across the street. trying
Kids,
to-
there's people, they go
Yeah,
out.
there's a lot going on. So we've always had police there. All right, so it's okay. Okay, thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve Singing Out Against Hunger at Coastal Roasters on Sunday, September 26, 2021, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Approval of the sound variance and approval of special event license, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
So moved. Second.
Motion been made by Councilor Vieira, seconded by Councilor Perry. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. It's so much easier to vote now. Thank you, Lisa.
Madam President,
Councilor Burke?
I'd like to ask that we move item 6, E, the Megan Cordero Memorial Foundation, to the next item.
I second that.
Motion been made by Councilor Burke, seconded by Councilor Janet. All those in favor? John, you gotta come this way. We're like.
Gotta do the limbo, John.
We really need arrows now here.
It's a maze.
Hi, John.
Hi.
I'm sure most people know about this very special project, but would you like to talk about it?
Sure. This will be the 13th annual Miles for Megan. It's a bicycle ride and walk. It is to benefit my youngest daughter Megan's Memorial Foundation. We use the walking track for the walk. And we start and finish the bike ride from the north parking lot at Town Farm. It's 3 separate routes. There's a novice 12 and a half mile route, a medium level beginner biking 25-mile route.
For some people.
And then we have a 62 and a half mile route for the more experienced bike riders. And they're spread across 3 separate routes. So we typically average about 100 bike riders spread across those 3 routes. So they spread out pretty good. The route is within Tiverton and Little Compton. We have a cookout afterwards for all the participants. Let's see. I'm usually there about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning setting up, and we're usually broken down by about 3:30. We're all wrapped up and out of the way. We don't use any of the ball fields. We don't use any of the soccer fields. So, we've already coordinated, as we always do, with Tiverton Little League and Tiverton Youth Soccer. They try to schedule away games at that time. Not that I'm using up the fields, but parking is tight down there, as we know. Maybe someday we can grab an acre or two from the Hard and Gray empty field and extend the parking lot, trade them for some other property, but I digress.
Or maybe the landfill. Once we close it.
And we'll put a big zip line.
Yeah.
So I guess over the years, we've probably raised over $250,000 and given most of it away. We
You benefit Hasbro.
benefit Hasbro, we benefit the Tomorrow Fund, we benefit Tufts Child Life up in Boston where Megan had a bone marrow transplant. For those of you who don't know, we lost our youngest daughter Megan to leukemia 13 years ago. After a year and a half back, that was our second home for quite a long time, unfortunately. And then a bone marrow transplant up at Tufts Floating Hospital for Children. So we benefit both of those hospitals. And when we have people come to us who are dealing with pediatric cancer, we make cash donations to help out those families. Teresa and I were extremely fortunate. We had employees that were very understanding. Most people who go through what we went through, one of the parents typically loses their job. We were extremely fortunate to have the flexibility from our employers and the generosity from Teresa's coworkers to donate leave so she could continue to have an income while she was out of work for that close to a year and a half. So we have a good time. We have a safe time. Everybody enjoys themselves. Everybody leaves with a full belly. And we raise money for great causes. And we'll actually be this year, we'll be pulling also Megan's scholarship under the foundation because this was the last year of our soccer tournament.
Oh.
Us hosting it. Teresa and I running it as is. I've offered
had
it.
enough, huh?
It puts me behind. I have to focus. I have to put more. We have to put more focus on the foundation. The soccer tournament we raise anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 for a weekend, and for the bike ride we raise about $35,000 to $50,000 for the one-day event. So I've got to concentrate on where I'm doing the most, raising the most money to do the most good. So in the soccer tournament, unfortunately, puts me behind. Look how late I'm in front of you folks. Without the soccer tournament next year, I'll be here in May, getting ready. So I'm going to scramble. I've been scrambling for the past 13 years to do both. We're getting older. We're getting tired. Hopefully, our family will start to grow soon. So we'll have less time for that, and we'll have to dedicate more time for family, and hopefully we want to grow the foundation. So we'll be pulling the scholarship under there too.
Good.
So it's a one-day event. We've got all our ducks in a row. The only thing I have to wrap up is the building inspector wants proof of the fire rating on my tent. It's a personally owned tent. So I'll take a snapshot of the label that's mounted to it, and hopefully that'll suffice the building official. But everything else is lined up. Insurance is pending. They never give us the policy this early, but as soon as there's a certain amount of days, they don't want to give it too soon. I think I have to wait. I don't think I can get it until 60 days before the event. So as soon as I get the policy, I'll send down a copy to the clerk's office, and our packet will be complete. Oh.
It's nice to have someone who knows exactly all the steps. All right, any questions from the audience?
Bill might get your barbecue, Bill. Might get your barbecue.
From the council? No one. It's not advertised.
Oh, it's not?
Oh, yes,
okay,
I don't
okay.
have to. I know, I just realized that. Any questions from the council? Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
So move.
The motion. Okay.
Go ahead, Don.
Okay. Motion made by Zonich.
Yeah, I make a motion that John Cordero's Megan L. Cordero Memorial Foundation request to be approved to conduct the 13th annual Miles for Megan Bike Ride and Walk event on September 25th, 2021, from 7:30 a.m. to 3:00 p.m. subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made by Counselor Cook, second by Counselor Janet. Any further discussion? All those in favor? There you go, John. Good
Thank you
luck.
very much.
Thanks, John.
Take care, John.
Okay. Now I gotta find where I am.
On traffic and vehicles.
All right, 6C, approved of proposed amendment to Tiverton Code of Ordinance, Chapter 78, Traffic and Vehicles, Section 7831, trucks exceeding 4 tons and overall weight prohibited from using certain streets. Who would like to speak on this?
I will. So I brought this forward and worked with the chief and the administrator on the language, in the solicitor on the language. It was brought as a request of a few constituents on those streets. And after a couple of incidents where some wires were brought down by 18-wheelers that were using those streets as cut-throughs. So this was put together, and I just have one question when it's appropriate of the chief on a possible need for an amendment.
Okay, any? You can ask him.
So Chief, I don't know if you have it, you do have it in front of you. So under the listing of roads, the last listing is Kenyon Road, and then it's parentheses, east beginning from Fish Road.
Correct.
I'm just thinking that's Kenyon Road East is the label on it. So should we take out the parentheses and just put Kenyon Road, comma, Kenyon Road East, comma, beginning from Fish Road, or do you even need the beginning from Fish Road since?
And if you go one up, we're designating Kenyon Road as a road in its entirety. So
Yep.
Make it clean. If you want to just put Kenyon Road.
Okay,
And then that will just encompass the whole road. Why that got put there, who knows? So just to kind of, especially with laws, just keep it as simple as possible.
yep. So then I would suggest we amend it to strike that second Kenyon Road reference.
Because is that bottom part of Kenyon is not East Kenyon, it's just Kenyon?
Correct. And as long as it says Kenyon Road, post the signs for the entire. And just so the council knows, I know I've worked with the vice president and the administrator and solicitor to review this. What our plans is, working with the DPW director, we're going to post the signs. We're going to assign officers to do, before we do strict enforcement, go door to door, talk to people who see commercial vehicles cutting through. Want to educate them first, so we get the word out. Any local businesses that are utilizing it, with the emphasis on deliveries, is fine. But as the vice president said, there have been several incidents that could have gone a lot worse because they're just avoiding going on 24, going Main Road, and they're cutting through these residential neighborhoods. So what we want to do, education first, and then enforcement.
And we do have a delay in effective 30 days after passage.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to open the public hearing. At this point, this is also a Zoom hearing. So anyone who would like to participate on Zoom, they can call the toll-free number 877-853-5247. That'll be audio only. Meeting ID 831-1015-8669, passcode 560638. To participate on Zoom, it's .zoom.us, meeting ID same, 831-1015-8669, passcode would be 560638. Anyone in the audience like to participate, ask any questions or comments? Come on up. Mr. Quirk, now that I know you. 194 Crandon Road, I'll do that for you.
Yes, I guess my only question on that, because I don't have it in front of me. When you say commercial vehicle, are you doing it by tonnage? Or are you doing it by any commercial plate?
No, that's a great question because the chief and I worked on this, and what we ended up doing was using the statutory definition for commercial vehicles in state law. So it's that the commercial vehicle is defined as a motor vehicle or a combination of vehicles used to transport passengers or property if the vehicle has One has a gross combination weight rating of 26,000.
I was going to say,
one
should-
or more
26
pounds,
is what's considered
of a-
commercial,
Yeah.
even,
Yeah,
play-wise.
and then of a towed unit with a gross vehicle rating of 10,000 pounds or a gross vehicle weight rating of 26,001, is designed to transport 16 or more passengers. So it could include buses, but school buses would be considered local delivery. Basically,
Right,
you're
exactly.
in a sense
Delivering
delivering children or picking up children. And that there's a limitation on those vehicles that carry hazardous waste.
Okay, so when the chief does his education, that will be explained to the people there?
I'm sure, Chief, you're probably going to provide a copy of the ordinance?
Yes, sir.
And
Okay.
explain that, yeah.
Because if I live there and I see a commercial plate, I'm going to be calling, driving everybody crazy if it's just a van.
Well, I'm sure I'll get those calls.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. We have a definition of controlled substance in this provision, and I don't know why we.
Where? Oh, yeah.
10. Hazardous materials.
I think, Chief, did you pull that straight out of the state statute, the controlled substance?
Oh,
So
it's,
that whole section
Yeah.
was copied out of the definitions of commercial vehicles under Rhode Island General Law.
because I think it's transporting
Controlled
hazardous.
substance got in there.
Yeah, I think you copied, yeah. So we don't need that because hazardous materials is defined as in part of the commercial vehicles, but controlled substance can be stricken, I believe.
So that whole 10
Yeah.
could be stricken. It was nice of you to worry about controlled substance. We all are. All right, so anyone on Zoom? No, no one called. Yeah, no one called in. Any
I'm sorry.
further participants from the audience? At this point, I'll close the public hearing. Mike, did you want to speak?
Make a motion.
Make a motion to strike certain provisions.
Yes.
So make a motion, we approve the ordinance amending Chapter 78, Traffic and Vehicles, Article 2, Operations, Section 78.31, related to trucks on certain roads, and strike from the copy before you the reference to Kenyon Road East, beginning from Fish Road, except for making deliveries on the street, as well as item number 10 under hazardous waste, strike the whole section related to controlled substances. We are keeping in the hazardous materials definition.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Burke, seconded by Councilor Vieira. Any further discussion from the council?
Yes, I do
Yes.
too.
Yes. You don't make money from these trucks.
I could.
Yeah, you could. All right, so motion's been made and second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, everyone that participated.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Michael
Chief,
and Chris.
Michael, Chris, and Councilor Burke. You didn't have anything to do with this? I'll be
Okay.
surprised.
I take it.
You have something to do with everything. All right, I'm sorry. Approval of proposed amendment to Tiverton Code of Ordinance, Chapter 2, Administration, Section 2-107, Casino Gaming Revenue. You all see the new ordinance that was given to you? Any questions? Michael?
Just to note, because it was hard for me to see it, when you look at the sentence in D that starts any monies transferred, the word cannot is now can. So you're striking the not. That line wasn't very clear.
Oh, okay. All right. So this is just the funds till June 30th, 2022. I want to make that clear. The new ordinance will go further. And hopefully will divide the gaming revenue in different portions. But this is just for this year, which this is just a little tweak in what was originally proposed. There is something I do want to bring up though. Sports betting. It's not specifically included in wording in this. If it is your wishes to do that, then we have to be more specific and put that in here. If it's not your wishes to put the sports betting and include it, and just put it at which it will automatically go into the general fund. It's 100 and, it would be 100, well, for this year it'd be,
It's gonna be
It'll be amended to
200,000.
200,000 beginning of.
22, but right now it's 100. So the 100 that came in, it's not specifically mentioned in this. And so that we are very clear, because there's been questions on whether that is really casino revenue. I do have an amendment to it if we want to do that. Like,
So that's not in Rhode Island General Law 4261.27?
2.5.
Different section.
It's 2.5. So, yeah, so just so 4261.27 is the $3 million guarantee. We get three, well, it's guaranteed now, right? So $3 million fund. The sports betting is actually in a different section of 4261 2.5. So if the intent of the council is to put that sports betting revenue into a reserve fund, you'd have to amend this ordinance to say 61.2-5. Otherwise, it'll just go into the general fund. I do want to comment. Well, I'll comment after. Go ahead.
any comments from the council?
Personally, I want to put any and all casino, sports betting into the restricted account.
For 2022, for now.
Yeah.
You're talking the sports betting also?
Yep.
I think it needs to be spelled out if.
Yes, and I do
Well,
have
that's
an
what we're-
amendment which would name the section, the specific section. I do want to, I meant to say this, one of the amendments to this new ordinance, and I want to make this very clear, it says any monies transferred into this account can be expended in fiscal year 2022 for municipal and school department capital expenditures by majority vote of the city, it says city council, but it's town council. I'm gonna give Sally Black a little heads up for this, because she's the one that has called us, and even though we said that this was going to be done, because of everything that's been going on, Sally thought it would be very, very advantageous if everyone saw it in here in writing. So it's town council and school department capital expenditure for 2022. And as you all know, with the budget committee, Chris and I advocated this. That was we did say that this money, we would buy school capital. And by doing that, the budget committee was able to give the school the maximum 4% for taxation. So we did promise that, and we're coming through with that word. So I just want everyone to realize it is now written in here. So we cannot.
Madam President, just to clarify, it was an affirmation of the entire council. When
Well, it was.
when we exceeded the levy,
Right.
by the 4% levy, when I came back with the adjustments that the entire council voted
Right,
that
but
school
I'm saying,
capital would be
Chris, that-
included.
I'm saying Chris and I, because I was the
No.
liaison and Chris spent many hours with me there. So, but it was, the council approved it and that's why we advocated it. So, but it's on here. So if anybody on Facebook want to say that they're not going to get it, it's written in this ordinance now.
So, and I feel strongly about that wording also, and Mrs. Black and I have spent many conversations about that. I'm just not sure how I feel that it's in the council's role to vote if it's a school capital item.
Well, this is what,
This is.
we talked about this before. So the schools will come with us with their priorities. The town council will come with,
Just for this year, though.
just this year, just for this. year.
Just for this
And we
year.
already know what the school committee has asked for and did not get this year. So we already know that there's going to be $3 million in this fund. Keep in mind, everyone, you will not be taxed for any of this capital. This money will pay for this capital, which reduces your taxes because we are paying from the casino money. And we're not taxing you for bonds or whatever else we'd have to do this. So that 3 million, we already know what they requested from the budget committee. And we'll certainly have a huge discussion with them. But there's 3 million in there.
So it's not the council who's determining the schools need X, Y, Z. It's from the school committee.
Yep.
Right? I'm looking at, I'm looking at you. Yeah.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi, Jerry. That was an invite.
Yeah.
So for anyone who knows, this is the school committee chairman, Jerry Lockett.
Yeah, yes, so Jerry Larkin, chair of the school committee, but not necessarily speaking on their behalf or authorized to speak, but I can speak to what we submitted, which was a prioritized list of capital needs. And I know,
100 and some thousand.
It's 500.
yeah, I'm trying to remember, there was it must have been a budget committee meeting. Yeah, it was the last budget committee meeting where they took the capital out. We had that discussion, and, you know, hopefully, as with everything, we would have this as a dialogue if, you know, other things emerged.
But what I'm
or
planning on doing is having a separate meeting with the school committee,
someone
public
wanted
meeting.
to
And
give
we
us $1
can
million,
talk about,
we would take it.
Because it also says in this ordinance for any emergency need. So it may not necessarily be emergency items that they need, so.
No,
no,
that's in addition
totally
to.
separate.
So the first piece is if we came to agreement on what those items are that we mutually have. The second piece, if for some reason, some other major emergency happened,
That's not
and we wanted to
capital.
use this money for, and it's not capital, we wanted to use this money, we'd
Okay.
have to have a supermajority vote
All
to
right.
approve that,
For municipal or school
for
department.
anything, yes.
Yes, for
Capital
both.
expense.
This is,
They're both
this
in
money
there.
is
Mrs.
for
Black.
school, the community. That's what this money's for. The school in town. There's no us and them. This is for all of us.
Yeah, and I think we all understood that at the time that the
Yeah.
budget was submitted.
I just want to
final
make
vote.
sure that the wording supports that.
I understand that as well, and I think it's important that it do so as well. So
Have you seen this? I think it's pretty clear. Do you want to look at it, Jerry? Just, why don't you?
I'd be happy to look at it.
Well, I know you're not speaking on behalf of the school committee, but your
So,
input's important.
so just to remind the council, the original ordinance as prepared would lock this money away until next fiscal year. And because of the budget issues that you had this year, there was agreement, consensus among the council, I assume the school department, that they would like to tap into this money this year. So we had to amend the ordinance to change the fiscal year 2023 to fiscal year 2022, which is this current fiscal year that we're in. Now, at the time this was negotiated or written, Chris and I, the town administrator and I were negotiating with the lottery commission because we weren't sure how much money we were going to get. And after the state budget got passed, we actually got $3 million
FY20.
for fiscal year 21 only.
There is a
And-
guarantee moving forward that should there be a furtherance of any type of emergency that exceeds 30 days, it will be prorated.
Yep,
So, you know, it was the best that we could get out of the state.
it was
to
perfect,
kind of-
Chris, and I want to thank both of you.
So we clarified that problem anymore. So if the state shuts down the casino, that language in there that said they had to be open for the entire fiscal year, that language is now out of the statute, state statute. So we're guaranteed 3 million unless they close for 30 days. And it's not just 30 days because they want to close for 30 days. It's a roof collapse, another pandemic, whatever. There's certain things in the statute. So we've clarified that little glitch that we had before that kind of got us in the trouble with fiscal year 20. So that's 30 consecutive days. So that's now clarified. So the guarantee got a little bit more guarantee-ish, I guess I can say.
And the
And that's a
proration,
legal term.
No, really not.
the proration starts after the 30-day period.
Right.
And we're also getting a little more
Yeah.
sports betting out of this, right?
Yeah, that was a separate,
Right.
Separate.
you get that Representative Edwards for that. We had nothing to do with that.
So the
proration starts after. So if we go 9 months without any closure, and then 30 days, the proration is only for that 3-month.
Correct.
Yes. Yes, not the 9.
Well, yes, it's only
Yeah,
those last 2 months.
I forgot what we figured out.
Yeah,
Week was how much?
It's,
58,000? 58,000 was it?
58,000 divided by 7, so it's, and it would have to be closed the entire day. So proration is proration. Depends on a number of factors that would play into it.
Pull that rabbit out of the hat.
Well, we just made it a little bit more beneficial for the community to the best that we could. I mean, they wouldn't do the entire guarantee, which we advocated for very hard, but, you know, when we originally had this issue in 2020, we pled with them to at least consider proration then, and it just wouldn't happen. And I will give Governor McKee a lot of credit, because he's the one, if it wasn't for him to make the lottery commission come back to the table and talk, and I will give our local delegation some kudos for this as well, because they're the ones who actually had to get the bill passed. And we had a lot of darts thrown at us as a very rich community, so not that I'm saying we are, but
Others
it was a big lift.
Even though I'm not for this, it shouldn't say city council.
We can change, we'll change that.
I'm just wondering how you're gonna spend this money. Does section 203 have anything to say about appropriation, any major special appropriation supposed to be approved by the voters? Doesn't say anything about tax money, non-tax money, it just says money. It has to go to ballot. You just can't spend money without.
We discussed this, Donna. This is casino money. This isn't tax revenue. We've talked this endlessly out.
It says special appropriation, which would be the casino money.
The casino money, that is the money. And we've talked about this. And it was approved by the majority of the council. I'm not going to go into a debate again.
It says it has to go to the people when you spend it. It's
Where do
very
you see
clear.
that?
It says it has to go back to ballot.
Oh, in the charter, but that, we've talked about this, Donna. This is casino money. Mike told us that we can do this. We've already approved one ordinance. This is the second one. I know you don't like it, but I'm not gonna have an endless conversation with this again.
So it's not, I've given an opinion of Ms. Smith that this does not violate 203 because it's not an appropriation. It's not approved by the voters. This is not money raised by taxation. This is money received from the state as a result of being a host of a casino.
It is a major or special appropriation. It doesn't say anything about taxation. A major appropriation is to spend the casino money without approval from the people.
But it's not appropriated.
It's not appropriate.
You are appropriating the casino money. You put it in a restricted fund and then you're going to spend it without voter approval.
So the council will be approving all the appropriations, so.
Donna, I know you don't like this. You
Well,
brought
I
us
really
on.
don't like
know.
the fact that you're going to spend millions of dollars and the people have no say.
And I understand that, and
It's wrong.
the majority of the council had voted this once before.
And that
this-
was wrong too.
Okay. All right, so any further discussion? This is a public hearing again.
So I see no hands. Anybody on the Zoom who's in the attendee room who'd like to speak, please raise your hand.
Anyone in the audience like to speak? I don't know if I gave the phone number on this one.
Okay,
No, you didn't.
If you,
anybody who would like to speak who's on Zoom or is watching any YouTube videos, you can actually call into this meeting at 877-853-5247. You'll need the meeting ID number, which is 831-1015-8669. And you'll need a passcode of 560638. All this information is published on the town's website under council meetings, under the agenda items. It is on our website where you could find that information. We'll give a few minutes to see if anybody from the public would like to log in.
okay, while we're waiting, any thoughts about the gaming money? I know Jay gave us a.
Sports betting.
Sports betting, I'm sorry. Any other thoughts about that?
Sorry, this wasn't clear to me that the $3 million was talking about what it's being spent on.
School and municipal capital expenses. The school does have priorities. The town is going to be discussing that with the administrator and come forward with priorities also.
And we've been in the process over the past couple of meetings of soliciting input from residents on ideas that they have. For example, the ideas that Mr. Martin put forward in his correspondence from earlier that Mr. Perry read.
But that won't be with this money in this one.
Going forward.
Going forward. Going forward, this money will be different. This is just for this year.
So, Madam President, well, also, when we get to the point of spending this money, it will be by ordinance.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
There'll be a full public hearing at that.
Yes.
So just for clarity, when the school department put their budget together, they had a 5-year capital plan of in excess of $20 million. The town probably has that and more in capital projects that have been deferred, and I think the schools would probably agree that their capital projects have been deferred year after year. And the idea was to try to get some of these issues resolved instead of kicking the can down the road, never getting them done. And we want a building, I'm not begrudging them or criticizing them, but we want a building 3 new schools because we didn't take care of our infrastructure years ago. And the last thing we want to do is be in that boat again. If we can take care of projects on behalf of the community, we should be taking care of that with special monies that are available.
Okay, gaming revenue. Does anyone have an opinion?
Sports betting.
Sports betting, I'm sorry.
And just so you, another, there is 2 components to the gaming money. There is actual gambling monies that's generated through their video slot machines and their table games, but there's also a component called sports betting that generates revenue as well.
I agree with Jay. I think that it should be all together, included all together.
Any other opinion? Okay, so I'd like to entertain a motion. I'm going to pass this out to you guys. This will be the amendment, which states the Rhode Island state law.
While you're doing that, I'll make the motion that we approve the ordinance concerning the establishment of reserve accounts for funds received from the state pursuant to the Rhode Island General Law 42-61.2-7 as amended. We haven't amended it yet. Well, so we gotta vote to accept this amendment.
We do 2 amendments. The first
Yes,
one to
tell me how
change
to do
city. We do the first one, changing the word city to town. That'll be
Okay.
the first amendment. Paragraph D.
So
Striking the word city, put town council.
that'll be the first amendment.
So moved.
Okay, so the amendment is instead of town, city, whatever, it'll be town council. All those in favor?
You need a second?
Oh, I thought I had a second.
No, I moved
Second.
it. Or did you move it?
I thought Jay moved it.
No, Mike moved it. I'll second it.
Motion's been made in second. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay,
You don't want it to say town?
no, he doesn't want the ordinance.
Oh, okay.
Second, go ahead.
The second amendment, if it's approved, is to amend the title to add Rhode Island General Laws 42-61.2-5. That's at the title.
Yep.
And then amend section 8 to add before Rhode Island General Law 42-61.2-7. So the site to Rhode Island General Laws 42-61.2-5 and that word and then so the whole section will read from the state of Rhode Island pursuant to those 2 sections, Rhode Island General Laws 42-61.5 and Rhode Island General Laws 42-61.2-7. So that will sweep in not only the $3 million fund, but the table game revenues of $200,000. Sports betting, I'm sorry.
It's me, yeah.
We've been doing it for months.
We've been talking about this. All right, do I have a motion? So moved to what, Mike said?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made by Councilor Burke, second by Councilor Edwards. All those in favor? Oh, did you raise your hand? For, against? What?
Wait,
Against?
Again, what?
those in favor and then those against.
So against? Are you against the motion?
Again, I'm
Okay,
sorry, I
okay.
didn't hear the against.
So it's 4-3. All right, and now the big motion.
Yeah, so now we're going to pass the ordinance as amended.
which Jay made. Correct. Do I have a second to Jay's motion?
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Janik. Any further discussion? Oh,
There's no premature.
yeah. All those in favor? Or against? What? Thank you. Okay. So we're done with that. Okay. Non-advertised public comment and input in regard to the use of casino gaming revenue for school and municipal capital expenditure, limited to 30 minutes. We've done this 3 consecutive meetings. Anyone who would like to give us any input on the further spending of this money after 2022? Yes. And this will be in an ordinance. Could speak now. We did hear from Bob Martin via letter today. Anyone else? Jerry, you spoke with. All right. Anyone on Zoom? I'm gonna give, even though I don't have to, because this is advertised, I'm gonna give you the meeting IDs. You can call toll free 877-853-5247, meeting ID 831-1015-8669, passcode 560638. Or you can come and join us on Zoom, www.zoom.us, meeting ID 831-1015-8669, passcode 560638. Anyone in the audience like to participate? We're just gonna give it a couple of seconds. Anyone in the attendee room could raise their hand. We are able to see that.
Just a suggestion, I'm listening all night, and I just did a Zoom, and learned so many things you can do on Zoom I never knew, because I did an online course. And I know you said this is your last one?
Yes.
but
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Who knows? I didn't know how to raise my hand.
Oh, you didn't?
No. And you're dealing with people out there that might have never used Zoom.
So it's at the bottom of the screen. It says raise your hand.
Yeah, but I'm saying, now, I think a good thing to add, if you look at your bottom of the screen, there's a hand, if you want to raise your hand,
Good point.
just
Thank
that,
you.
because.
Oh, and say that publicly.
Right.
Yeah, say
I
it
get you.
publicly, just because I'm 70, you know.
We've just done too many of these meetings, but.
I'm 70 when I was.
And I'm
a-
not, believe me.
And the thing on our screen, you don't see the raise hand function.
It's really strange what we see.
Yeah, okay. Just a suggestion, that's all. Because
Hopefully, we'll never have to see this again. This is my final Zoom, hopefully.
Yeah.
when I was 7, I didn't have a TV set, so that tells you who I am. Thank you.
And just for clarification, I said it earlier, these public hearings were advertised that we were gonna be on Zoom, so I had to do it on Zoom this evening. From now on, public hearings will not be advertised that way unless we go back into a problem, which we hopefully will. Someone raise their hand?
No. Oh, you let them in. So I
No.
assume-
I think they just came in.
Oh.
No.
You want to ask them?
Toy in, that sounds great.
Huh? It's 5, it's a phone. It's a phone
Oh, I
number.
thought you were talking about the last one.
No, it's a phone number.
No, that's always been there.
No, he just came in. We had 3 screens. Now he's on.
Oh,
Back in the attending room.
oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Mr. Tester.
Remember the other fake one?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Deb.
No, question in the audience.
Oh,
Oh,
I know you mentioned it earlier in the evening, Oyster Farm, I wasn't sure if that was.
Coming up.
it's coming up at some point.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
I tried to make this meeting short, but it didn't work. No, it's not you.
No.
No, it was and believe it or not, I didn't put all the requests on here this week.
So
This is
at
just,
this point, I think you can close up.
yep, I'm closing the public hearing.
I would like to speak against
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I don't wanna-
You weren't raising your hand, Jay.
I know I wasn't. So I wanted to allow others who had not spoken So again, thank you for hearing us. And just back to the last issue, the ordinance certainly seems sound to me. So I spoke a couple of weeks ago and tried to offer some ideas, and I wanted to, I guess, explicate them a little bit. I do believe that some money should be allocated towards tax relief, because even though a lot of us were lucky to retain our jobs and in fact sometimes had more disposable income than we had beforehand during the pandemic, clearly a lot of people lost their jobs. I would recommend that you take some portion of money, $500,000, $1 million, $800,000, whatever you want to make it, and allocate $1,000 grants that people could apply for based on their income, their property value, and that would give them tax relief, because I think that's what we hear a lot. I think that would also tell you something as well, is that whether or not people really are in need of tax relief, maybe you'd get 10 applications, maybe you'd get 1,000, maybe you'd get 10,000. I won't submit one, I promise you. But I think it would at least tell you sort of where people are and how hard they are hurting through this pandemic. And again, it's a very unique time. It's not something I would have advocated 2 years ago and probably won't advocate in 5 years. But I do think it's important that some of the money be turned back to the people. Secondly, again, the schools, now we know what our budget is. It's $32.5 million. We still have a $1.4 million shortfall. We know that some of the money from ESSER 2 can be used to restore some of the positions. But I also can tell you right now that we're going to eliminate well, actually, before I can tell you that, one of the questions that Councilor Edwards asked 2 weeks ago was, do we know where we are in terms of education? We do have some information statewide. We know that in the area of math, for grades 3 through 5, they are 2 to 3 months behind. And for grades 2, 6, and 7, they are 1 to 2 months behind in math. And then in reading, grades 3, 4, and 5 are 1 to 2 months behind. So there is quantifiable now significant education loss. We don't have hard numbers about Tiverton yet. We will get RICAS scores sometime this fall, I believe, and that will tell us something.
This is because of homeschooling, because of the remote school.
Well,
some of it.
It's because of all kinds of things. Yes, remote learning has something to do with that. COVID has some, student absenteeism, teacher absenteeism, familial supports. There's all kinds of things, but that is one of the reasons why we are. What is unequivocal is that we are behind. So in order to close our deficit, we will be, because we have to balance our budget by charter or by law by August 16th, I believe it is, or 17th. We're going to be eliminating, should be doing this with my glasses, a grade 7 math position, a high school guidance counselor, a high school science teacher, and a middle school science teacher, 3 non-teaching staff members, and the culinary arts program. We are eliminating those. What we should be doing is adding program to make up for the socioeconomic or social and emotional losses, COVID mitigation, learning loss, curriculum development. So that's where we are. I know the budget committee was generous. It gave us, and you guys worked hard to give us 4%, but that was cut into by a drop in $600,000 in state aid. There were rumors that that was going to be restored. It was not. We lost $600,000 in state aid. So the overall increase was really about 1.5% or maybe less than that % in the, so a $400,000 overall increase in the school budget. Lastly, I don't know how popular this will be with either body, but I would be happy to work to convene a joint meeting of both the town council and the school committee to see if we can continue this discussion. both about capital and about where we are. And I guess putting on my other hat, because I feel like there's a duty to warn as well as a position. The Delta variant is very transmissible. We got some very worrisome information that I'll be presenting at our meeting tomorrow night. If you want to tune in, it's riveting. You're having difficulty sleeping. But COVID is not done with us yet. And the earliest we can forecast right now that we'll be able to vaccinate our under 12s is probably December, January. So we should not be cutting anything, but that's what we're going to be forced to do, agreeably by, or admittedly, or I'll stipulate by statute because of what the 4% cap. But that doesn't make the losses we're going to suffer anymore or any less.
Jerry, I was going to
Thank you.
suggest some kind of I called it in my mind a financial forum with the
Yeah.
school committee in the town, maybe in September, where the school committee and town council get together and talk about
Yeah.
our needs, about what's going on, and also with audience participation, because there's other questions out there also.
Yep.
So almost like a public comment area too, so that we're all here and we can all answer the questions to our best knowledge.
Right.
With us in the room, with all of us together.
Right.
Open forum. So that's what I was gonna say.
Absolutely. And
Somewhere in September, so we can get some of this stuff done and know our needs greater with
Right.
the recycling and everything else. But I was hoping we could do that somewhere in September. If that's,
I think that would be great. And I think, even understanding the process between the state formula in and of itself is very confusing. It's defined by land values, income,
It's
poverty rates.
complicated.
Right.
and
It's very complicated.
I was on the school committee.
But
and
it also drives then the entire budget process in the town.
Absolutely.
And it is very confusing.
I do think it's totally unfair that you get an 8% state aid cut and you can only raise by 4. I mean, it's
Right.
It's an asinine process that,
And
Sorry,
nearly impossible to anticipate because of enrollment, because it's driven by things like enrollment. All of a sudden, people supposedly in town have more valuable houses and
Right.
higher
I mean,
incomes. And for some people, that's
but
undoubtedly
why
true.
couldn't they
but
have
for me-
phased that in over 2 years instead of, forcing it? To me, there's no sense to it.
We were held harmless for drops in enrollment. Every district was held harmless for drops in enrollment, but you're right. There's no,
Okay,
so.
so you were given over 5 minutes again. I want you to remember that, but nobody else is around
I
anyway.
always
so-
remember that. I only took it because there was nobody else.
And I'm hoping that we could use the auditorium for that, because you never know for that forum, because there might be a lot of people that want to participate.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great idea. And, but again, to my original point, we have to balance our budget.
By August 16th.
Yeah, 16th. So, thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
Sally, I guess you want to speak?
My turn?
Yeah,
Just a
go
second. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So as most of you know, I've been watching the budget committee and been at them since 2003. Missed probably 2, watched them all this year. And only one person ran for budget committee, as we know. It was Dave Perry. I called him. He had institutional knowledge. I said, we really need you. No, yes, no. Finally, he did. No one else ran. People were appointed. Anyone who lives here, who looked at that, 11 people sitting there, might have thought it wasn't going to be such a good outcome for the schools, possibly. Because of hard work every single week, and the town council working on weekends in the schools. I thought it was one of the best seasons I had seen, believe it or not, until the last 2 nights, of course. The last 2 nights, as many things happen, after there's a meeting, things blew up and a different motion was brought to the floor, which if that had passed, it would have been big trouble for the school, and we could not take another hit after last year was 0. So I was very grateful that the people had worked together, had come together and looked at all the information and said, those things I heard aren't true. This is what's really happening. And we have to support each other now. been tough. As I said, people have lost jobs, people have lost family members. And it's time for Tiverton to come together. We say 02878. I was criticized for that, for saying that once, but really and truly, it's a bunch of great people in this town that really want to help each other out. And I hope, and I think that's where we are now. Instead of when I go on, I'm new on Facebook and I'm totally shocked because I'm saying, wait a minute, that's not what I saw. That's not what I heard. Where's this coming from? And people tell me, be careful, don't say anything back. I try to be good. But anyway, thank you, all of you, the schools and the budget committee and the town and Chris and Denise working so hard and all of you other people that came on at the meetings to try to put down what could have been a very bad budget. And also, we're still pending, Dr. Larkin, Mr. Shabbat and Randy Lowell and I are still pending from our 2017 request we tried to put in. And we were shot down, even though the school was asking for less. And I just got my tax bill. And I looked at all my taxes and it went up a little bit, but not as high as it was in 2017. Just so everybody knows, when you get your tax bill, go back and look and see. It could have been higher before and mine was. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sally. All right, so, yes.
Hi, I'm Chip Lawrence. Yes, I'm vaccinated. I do this because of Bill. I'm due to speak tonight. I happily do that. It's about climate change, but I can come back the next meeting instead if that fits your crunch.
Well, we were just gonna do some appointments and then you were next.
Okay, I'll stay.
Is that all right?
Yes, I was just trying to volunteer.
Did Bruce leave or is he coming back?
I think Bruce will be back, but I can do it.
Well, I had things to do.
She's a reporter for this conference.
Yeah,
She's
she's.
the reporter for this conference.
Meetings take a long time.
Yeah, okay.
Amy,
Anyway, so
Amy.
I'm ending this public comment. So the next thing we have to do is approve an ordinance. And I want to do that at a special meeting. I'm thinking it's gonna take Mike a little time to write it up. I'm thinking if everyone's available, how does August 16th sound? Some of us are on vacation the first and second week. What day of the week is that? It's a Tuesday. No, August 17th, it's a Tuesday. It had to be the 17th. Is that all right with everyone?
What's he running?
It'll be the new
Oh, okay.
gaming ordinance. As you
Do
know,
we have enough information on
You talk about the appropriation for capital expenditures? You just passed the ordinance.
no, I'm talking
future,
about
the
the
future.
future
Oh,
ordinance,
the
because
future.
we've been doing this.
Okay.
And anyone have any suggestions, please email them to Mike or
So
Chris.
my only concern with that is we still don't have the survey up that we said we were gonna put up and it should be up shortly. I just have to give.
And that's
some
why I was
feedback.
thinking August 16th. Do you think we should go further?
I think
further?
we should go further out.
Okay,
I mean, I understand
Yeah.
that we want to get it done, but there's still time.
yeah, you're right. How about August 30th? Or you want to make it for a September meeting? August 30th.
Sometime in September.
All right, so we'll do sometime in September. We'll tell you when it is.
The 6th is a holiday.
Yeah, it'll be a special meeting, but we'll send out a survey. Joan and I will look at some dates and send out a survey to you guys. I realize that August is a big vacation week and that's half my problem too. All right, so Board of Licensing. I'm gonna have Mike take over for a minute. I have to run to my car.
Walk.
Do we have to do a public hearing?
No,
It's ready.
I don't
I
know.
don't want you to get hurt.
Okay.
Walk,
I don't know where my phone is. And I'm on.
We have before us item 7A, Peter Lacasse Antiques at Old Tiverton, 1019 Main Road. Request approval of holiday license, subject to meeting all legal requirements. And you do have backup on this. It's attached to the back of,
Yeah, it's,
I just had it and I
It's
can't.
at the end of Megan, Miles for Megan.
Yeah, the miles for Megan. On the back of that,
On the back page.
you'll see that attachment, and I need to find it. I can't find it right now. Yeah, thank you. So we did approve a different license for Mr. Lacasse at our last meeting. This is simply to approve him for a holiday license.
Does this apply to any and all holidays?
It's so they can be open on a holiday,
Any
any holiday.
Any holiday. Any discussion from the council?
Is this 7A? We're on 7A?
This is 7A, yes.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Here, it's
No,
it's very simple.
I'm just trying to find it.
Yeah, I got it right here.
Yeah, it's a one pager. It doesn't really say much other than
Yeah, the name.
holiday license approval.
Right there.
I'm sorry?
Needs to be open to do business.
Flip that over.
Any discussion from the council? Any other input? I don't see Mr. Lacasse in the audience. I've met him once, but I don't see him. I don't see him over here.
I don't think he's on YouTube.
Yeah, no, I don't
the
see
Zoom
him.
thing either.
I'll make a motion that we grant Peter Lacasse Antique at Old Tiverton, 1019 Main Road, request for holiday license, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Any second? Second. Motion made by Councilor Perry, seconded by Councilor Edwards. Any further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Or raise your hand. All those opposed? Passes unanimously, except for Denise is not here. Moving on to appointments and resignations. We have before us for the Conservation Committee, item 8A, 7-member board, 3-year terms. There is one vacancy. You have his request before you. Tom Malinsky of 122 Thomas Street is requesting reappointment for a term to expire 7/15/2024. Is Mr. Malinsky here? Or I don't see him on my screen. Any discussion, any input? Donna?
I would just like to know if he shows up to meetings.
Do you have any idea, Chris?
Minutes.
I believe he does.
It would probably be in the
I have
minutes.
to go back and look at all the meetings. I don't have that in front of me now.
Okay. Any other questions? Donna, do you want to hold on that because of that question, or you want to?
It makes me uncomfortable because if maybe he doesn't show up, maybe I'm
Do
saying.
you want a motion
okay,
to
can
table
we-
until our next meeting?
Could we wait?
Okay. Is everybody okay with that? If so, Donna, you want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to table till next week for more information.
Second.
Motion to table till our next first August meeting, which is August 10th? I believe. No, 10th is a holiday.
The
10th
ninth
is
is
not
the holiday.
9th is a holiday. Table to August 9th.
August 10th.
I'm sorry, August 10th. Made by Councilor Cook and seconded by Councilor Perry. And all those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? All present are in favor. Moving to Economic Development Committee, 5-member board, 4-year terms, 1 vacancy. Renee Jones, 161 Highland Road, requesting reappointment to expire 7/15/2025. And is
Make a
Renee
motion,
still
we
here?
reappoint her before she leaves. Let's reappoint her right away. Hurry up.
Renee, would you like to come up?
She does go to every meeting. She does go to every meeting.
No, I just don't know the other person and I didn't look. I was looking at others.
There's only one for this one, Donna.
You don't have to put your mask on. We know who you
There's
are.
only one, just Renee.
She's trying to hide, huh? You're trying to hide. Yeah, I know.
What did you say? Yes,
I said I make a motion, we reappoint you right away before you leave.
Oh,
Right.
Renee, would you like to say anything?
No, we have a lot of work ahead of us. I keep getting information daily that makes me nervous, but I mean, we do have a lot of work ahead of us. We have a lot of opportunities ahead of us. One of the things that occurred to me as you were talking about even the recycling center was that there is a grant, an infrastructure grant that's coming out. That's $40 million that the state is wanting to give out money, and this sounds like something that we might want to look into for the recycling So
Mhm.
I'm sure, Chris, you must have that information, but clearly, to deal with what's going on with the business park. And we should look into that, because it's money for infrastructure. That's the kind of information that we're getting. I have been involved with, I'm getting better at going to more meetings, but also meeting a lot of people,
Well,
sort
that's
of putting the word out that Tiverton is here. And I'm always, at the last meeting, we had one with Connect Data Mutual, and they were talking about our business park as an asset to the state. So, people are paying attention to, starting to pay attention to Tiverton. Got a lot of work to do.
Thank you. Questions for Renee?
I would just like to say, Renee, we've never met. I have been watching your meetings. I'm really impressed with you, your energy, and really what you bring. So thank you for all your work.
But I do want to take a minute.
They watch us all, Renee, all
Oh,
of us.
Lord, my dear. I do want to take a minute to thank Dave Robert, though, honestly. He has been so helpful with our website. You know, he prompted me because he watches our meetings as well. And he usually gets back to me the very next day with a suggestion or a way that we could do something different. And he's really been wonderful. So just want to pass that along.
My motion still stands.
One more. I just want to note, as the liaison to this committee, which I think felt sometimes like they were treated as a backwater commission. You know, Renee is very much an asset as the chair. Her leadership has been wonderful and has really helped us move this forward. And her passion is clearly there. So I thank you for that. And I owe you a phone call, I know. So
She's been the driving force that we need.
yes.
Very, very good.
So we
Thank
need
you.
a motion to set aside our policy to not. what's that
So
policy?
moved.
For, and move approval tonight. So moved, Joe.
I'll make that a motion, yes.
Second by
To
Counselor
waive
Rivera.
the normal policy.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of reappointing Renee? Any opposed? None? All unanimous.
No, this is to move the motion.
Oh, to move, I'm sorry. To move the policy.
Policy.
Move the policy. Okay, so the policy has been moved.
Yeah.
Now.
Now we'll make a motion to reappoint
Reappoint Renee.
Renee to her term to expire in 7/15/2025.
Second.
You'll only be 20 then.
Counselor Renee Vieira. Again, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Thank you, Renee.
Thank you, Renee.
Back to you.
All right, so the Harbor Commission, 9 members, 2-year terms, there's 5 vacancies, 4 expiring on 7/15/2021, and 1 expiring 7/15/2022. So we have David Stewart, 593 Highland Road, request reappointment to expire 7/15/2023. John DeVoe, 31 Maryland Drive, request appointment to expire 7/15/2023. Deb Hagan, 540 Non-Quit Road, request appointment to expire 7/15/2023. Anyone here? I would imagine you're Deb. Come on up, Deb.
What gave it away? What gave it away?
Well, she didn't look like John or David, but you never know. Welcome.
Thank you.
Why would you like to be reappointed to the Harbor Commission?
Appointed for the first time.
For the first time?
Yes. My interest is in aquaculture development, as some of you already know. I've been sending emails.
Well, I finally see the face now. So.
Good to meet you in person. But I'm interested in representing the residents of Tiverton, not only waterfront property owners, which I am, but also the people who use our waterways for recreation.
Thank you. Any questions for Deb?
Not a question, but I appreciate you coming forward and volunteering.
Thank you.
For this. It's extremely important for us to have new faces and new energies in our various committees and commissions, so thank you.
Thank you.
So because we have 3 and we have 5 vacancies, right? Okay. I would like to entertain a motion to appoint this evening.
So moved.
Oh, just a minute. John, I don't even know John DeVoe, but he said that he can't be here from January to March.
We're just doing moving.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, it's just, and then I'll do individuals.
Okay.
Okay, so, motion been made to, appoint this evening. All those in favor? Now we'll do individual. Motion for David Stewart. Would anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Vieira, seconded by Councilor Burke. Any further discussion on David? All those in favor? Unanimous. Now, John. John DeVoe. Donna, you have a concern about John?
What he's written is fabulous, but then he's saying he's not going to be here. Where does it say that? It said,
yeah, it was
he's gonna
here.
be gone from January to March.
It's under his personal information on the first page of the application. It does say his computer Wi-Fi access, but we won't be able to be doing remote
Yeah,
meetings
he
at that
says,
point.
I do spend the winter months, January through March in New Hampshire with computer Wi-Fi access, but we're not doing Zoom anymore.
Yeah, so he won't be able to. So we don't have to appoint him if that's a concern.
Well,
Anyone?
Well, it would be up to the chair. I mean.
I think that could be a problem.
Well, I do too.
That could be a problem, especially for quorum.
You know, maybe he thinks we're still on Zoom when he made this out. I'm not sure.
We probably were when he put the application in, yeah.
But technically, by charter, a member can miss as much as 2/3 of meetings and still remain on whatever board or commission he's on. But the concern should be sort of front loading and telling us, well, automatically going to miss 25% of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, while that may be in the charter, I have a concern about building it into an appointment that,
Yeah,
you know, that many meetings are likely to be missed automatically.
And it's not only that, they also are an appeal board, if the harbor master, if you don't have a quorum, and there seems to be an issue with people showing up, and basically I can't even check because there's no minutes. I can't check anything. So
We have discussed that.
that aside, I think it's a problem to start out with.
So at this point, because it is a concern, would anyone like to nominate John? That would be the first thing. Would anyone like to make a motion? If not, it fails. The application fails. So no one would like to nominate him, so we are going to move on.
And it's without prejudice, so if
It's
he comes
without-
back to us
Yeah,
and
it's
wants
just because
to
of
argue
that.
his
Other
point,
than
you
that,
can do
it's
that.
too bad, you know, I just.
But I will thank him for letting us know. that this
Yeah,
was
instead
gonna
of just
happen.
not showing up.
Instead of just not showing up.
All right, so the next is Deb Hagan. Would someone like to make a motion to appoint Deb Hagan?
So move.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Burke, seconded by Councilor Edwards. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Welcome aboard, Deb.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
You're not sorry.
Thank you for waiting.
And you might be sorry.
Thank you for all your emails too.
Thank you. Zoning Board of Review, 5-member board, 5-year terms, 3 vacancies, 1 expiring 7/15/2021, 2 alternates with 1-year terms, expired 7/15/2021. Now, David Collins, 400 Main Road, request reappointment to expire 7/15/2026. And Jennifer Hilton, 120 Church Pond Drive, request reappointment to expire 7/15/2022. So Jennifer is an alternate. Alternates are yearly, that's why this looks like this. Jennifer still wants to remain as an alternate, or there's no openings, okay. So there is one more opening for an alternate. Okay, is David or Jennifer here? I don't believe so. So,
I checked and they go to almost all of them.
oh, they do, yes, they do. Jennifer and David have been doing this a while. And
It's important.
yeah, and I have to tell you that Lisi, the chairman did call and she approves of both of these appointments. She feels they're very valuable to her board.
Jennifer, she is an alternate?
Yeah, Jennifer is an alternate. Yep.
She is,
Okay, so first we have a motion to appoint this evening an identity.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Motion made by Councilor Perry, seconded by Councilor Burke. All those in favor? I'd like to entertain a motion to nominate David Collins, to appoint David Collins, reappoint David Collins.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Perry, second by Councilor Janik. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Next is Jennifer Hilton for reappointment to, as an alternate, 7/15/2022 is their expiration. Anyone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made by Councilor Perry, seconded by Councilor Janik. All those in favor? Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion at this point to bring up general business 9E, Council Vieira, climate change and its effect on Tiverton coastal area, presentation by the Harbor Commission. You're on. Thank you for waiting for so long. You're going to be using the,
Yes.
okay. So I'm going to go over there.
Yeah,
so I
motion
can-
seconded. Motion and made in second. We didn't-
Oh, motion made to do this. I'm sorry.
Second, second. All in favor?
Councilor Edwards.
Bill Vieira made.
Bill made the motion,
I
seconded by Councilor Perry. All those in favor?
Unanimous.
Now you're up. As the night goes on, I get tired. I've been up since 4. That's early. It's nursing.
Are we moving to the back?
Well, it's the only way to see. I can't see it.
They gotta go in the corner. They were bad. Put them in the corner.
Well, Madam President, I want to thank you for this opportunity. Back on February the 1st, the Harbor Commission presented a 45-minute discussion regarding climate change and their effects on, quite possibly effects on Tiverton waterfront. So tonight I've invited the chairman, Bruce Cox, and Professor Chip Lawrence here to make a abbreviated 10 to 15-minute presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you taking some time with us about this, about the issue of climate change and sea level rise. Yes, I am a professor of Brown in applied mathematics. I've been doing applications in climatology for more than 20 years, and I am a member of the Harbor Commission. So, what's this thing? How is it we get climate change? So the solar energy comes in from the sun. That heats the earth. Out goes infrared radiation. Molecules that are involved in greenhouse gases, CO2, methane, and a few others, have a chemical structure such that they vibrate and re-radiate infrared radiation. It re-radiates in all directions, but of course that means little under half is coming back to the Earth. And so that's where the warming comes from. So methane is even worse. It has to do with how their molecules will vibrate when exposed to radiation. Okay. It's already having an impact. Faster than the climate scientists predict. The impacts of a warming Earth are readily apparent. If you've been looking at the news at all, you've heard about the big fires in California, in Oregon even bigger. If you were driving up today, you saw the smoke. as I was driving this evening, that's coming from the West Coast, right? They have a fire in Siberia that has burned an area as big as Florida. The one in Oregon is a third of the size of Rhode Island. You've probably heard last year about the big hurricanes and flood and heavy rains down in the Gulf Coast. You may have seen the news in West Germany about big floods they had there in the western part of the country. And there was in the news either today or yesterday that London and New York City had exceptionally heavy rains. Their subways got flooded, and actually some of the streets also got flooded. So climate dynamics have tipping points. So not to overdo you with jargon, but it's a nonlinear dynamic system, and it has positive feedbacks. So those positive feedbacks, as I will explain in a minute, can result in there being sudden changes in behavior. So we're familiar with this. We're familiar with this. If you set a box on the table, you push it to a certain amount, and then finally it's going to fall over. It's abruptly changed, right? And often those changes are hard to reverse. So I hope we haven't crossed one yet. I don't believe we have, but it's getting closer and closer. So the Earth's climate system has positive feedback and tipping points. So one of those is that when the Arctic ice melts, water absorbs the solar energy, which is raising the temperature. You get more melting, and we get more absorption. So, right, the water is going to absorb more energy than the reflection from the sea ice. So that's one of the feedbacks. The one of greater concern is permafrost. So permafrost melts. That allows the bacteria to come out of resting. The anaerobic ones make methane. The aerobic ones make CO2. Methane's about 80 times stronger than CO2. That traps into the Earth's heat, making it hotter, which goes back to melt more permafrost. That's the one that really concerns me. And this is already happening. So how does that deal with sea level rise? Well, in two ways. The major glaciers that sit on Greenland and Antarctica sit up on the land. And so when they break off, or parts of them break off and fall into the ocean, that's like dropping an ice cube into a glass, right? It's going to go up, right? We hope not over the top for our climate, right? And the other effect, which is larger now, but may not continue to be larger, and that is, of course, when water heats, it expands. Right? So sea level rise accelerates by nearly all measurement stations along the East Coast in 2020. Almost everyone, it's actually accelerating. So while we may have had a few millimeters last year or a few years ago, we got a few more millimeters now per year increase, right? So scientists have looked at some very bleak scenarios that could flood many regions, major cities like Miami, right? Also New York and Boston, okay? But where does this come from Tiverton? So I used this thing that Rhode Island did, these storm tools, and I want to present you to get you some insight on how it might affect Tiverton. So these projections are made by those storm tools. And the projection I took was one of the lowest ones that they have made available, and that would be 2 foot of sea foot rise and a 25-year storm. What do you mean by a 25-year storm? It means there's a 4% chance every year. That's what it really means, right? And you can see, all right, if we go up here, hopefully, oh, you're not, sorry, I need a pointer, right? So if you go just north of the bridge there, right, then you can see all along Riverside Drive, many of the houses there are going to be flooded. And if we go down, we can see at Fogland, that lightest band is like 2 feet of water. It's going to go over the top of Fogland. I live where I overlook the Sepauwett Marsh. All the roads out in Sepauwett, they're all going to be flooded with just that much, right? In Stone Bridge, we're going to have floods. It'll go across. It'll flood coastal roasters in that vicinity. There's that professional buildings there along the way. They'll get flooded. And say nothing about 7 foot of sea rise. It'll go much higher up should that happen. Let's hope we can avoid that. So what actions could Tiverton take? First, I'd like to suggest we could warn the homeowners and the businesses in these flood-prone areas. Like send them a letter or whatever, however you communicate with them. I could ask you to appoint a task force made up of various members from various commissions, business people, other stakeholders. The Rhode Island Municipal Resilience Program, there's the link, provides a reasonable way to, or at least to support that. And if we adopted more renewable energy installations in Tiverton, we could fight the existential threat. The town of Tiverton could improve its energy efficiency. And the other thing that I'd like to bring up is about flood gauges. So let me show you what a flood gauge is. That's one in Houston, right? When they had their big flood, fortunately they had that there, so nobody knew to go, people knew not to go down. And certainly you don't want to send your fire engine down there. A couple of years ago when I was getting into this, I just went to chat with a fire chief about it. And he said, yes, we might like to see that because we'd like to make sure that our truck isn't going to get stuck, right? Buried in the water, potentially washed away, right? So there are some simpler ones. I can show you many different kinds. I just chose these. Bruce has suggested one, and I think he's talked to National Grid about it, where National Grid may allow us to put stripes around phone poles and some kind of marking about how deep the water is. So when you know you're driving your car down, like you want to get out of coming out of the Sepauwett area, Sepauwett Avenue area, it would be nice if you know, is it going to be 4 feet of water? I'm not going to get through there. So that's what flood gauges are for. And that's something I'd like to suggest that we investigate, and that maybe some of this stimulus money or whatever they're calling it now is, right, could be allocated to do that. And so we could get at the improvements in energy efficiency. So I happen to know about this because my nephew, Jacob, right, he not only got down the use of CO2 by their heating and their inefficient lights and so on, but he saved them thousands of dollars by working with this program, this Cogenics program, to bring it down. And I'd like to say, I am retired from teaching. I'm still a faculty member. I have graduate students and postdocs, grants and all of that stuff, right? And, you know, obviously I'm very concerned about this. I used to be concerned about my grandson. Now I'm concerned about my children. So it's personal for me. And I'm on the board of the Rhode Island Flood Management Association. So I'm ready to pitch in should you need somebody who take the charge on this. Okay, so my take-home points are: the Earth's climate has positive feedbacks and tipping points. Let's hope we don't go beyond those. Major floods will happen in Tiverton if climate change isn't addressed, and I think we can't be confident the world is going to be able to do this, so we need to prepare for that to happen to Tiverton. And yes. And there are several steps Tiverton can take to prepare our town for these coming changes. So that's what I thank you very much. I appreciate your attention. Yes, I am a fisherman. I can tell you as a fisherman that I noticed that the species have changed, that there are species that were here but are now common, that are now somewhat less common in New Jersey. So yes, I've seen this personally. All right, thank you much. I appreciate your attention.
Thank you.
Chairman Cox, anything to say? In the mic, please.
As was mentioned by Professor Lawrence, a year ago, pre-COVID, I was in communications with the Verizon, and the telephone poles are owned by National Grid and by Verizon. I was in contact with the National Grid entity relative to the possibility of putting straps on the poles, and actually it was an idea developed by Roger Winiarski, who's just stopped being he's almost a lifelong member of the commission. And that is to utilize an existing structure, namely the telephone poles, and identifying elevation on the poles that corresponded with the road adjacent to the pole, and put simple stripe systems on. And I have the contacts. The National Grid individual had said he'd spoken to Verizon. They were interested in the concept for the same reasons that National Grid and the fire department and actually everyone would be, is what is the depth here on the road at different low points that exist. And so I'm going to have to revisit and reestablish with them, because National Grid was crippled, as were many of the utility facilities, because as the most simplistic element, they could only have one person per truck for all of the COVID year. And so they are, that's where their elements were. So that is a possible campaign that we'll be coming back to you with, and the town may want to solicit funding to assist in to the installation.
Oh, that's great. As you know, we've had some citizenry groups start to grow, Saves the Power and some others. So I look forward to them working with the Harbor Commission in moving this topic forward. I appreciate, again, this was a very abbreviated, for respect for time. If people go back to the YouTube video, the Tiverton videos, back to that February, you'll get a more complete presentation. But I appreciate your time, and Madam President, thank you very much.
So the February meeting was the Harbor Commission.
February 1st Harbor Commission meeting
Just so people
was a
know.
45-minute.
It was a really very awesome presentation. I wish I had had you as a professor in college.
Well, thank you for waiting so long. I appreciate it. Thank you, Bruce. All right, moving on. Council Edwards, discussion and possible vote on resolution to state legislature requesting change to CRMC notification requirements.
You want me to read this whole thing?
No, you all have it in your packet, right, guys?
Yes. Okay, so with this, to give the history of why I did this, as we're all aware, there is a lot of controversy about the aquaculture farms that are projected to be down at Sapawa. And I was asked to try to do something about it. Well, there's not a lot that the town can do other than send a message to the state legislature, the governor, the CRMC, about how we feel about it. My intent here is not to try to stop the aquaculture farms. My focus is more on the fact that we feel that notification is lacking. People who are impacted directly by this aren't notified directly. They sort of have to find out. My intent is to change the rules a little bit so that the CRMC would be required to notify the town directly as soon as they get a permit application, not later on in the process, but as soon as they get one. That gives us time to look into it. That gives the butters time to react to it. That gives the public in general time to make comment instead of being given like, oh, I got 30 days and what do I do now? So that is the intent of asking the legislature to modify the rules.
So this will not be reviewed by them till January.
No, well, I fully understand that. They're not in session. So if anybody thinks that the 2 aquaculture permits that are being contemplated right now will be affected by this, they will not. What this will affect is the future, which is the thrust of my argument.
Any comments from the council? Yes, Mike?
So Jay, thank you. I think this does fit right into the conversations we've had as a committee of seeking help from our delegation specifically around some legislation and or regulatory change that would require CRMC to be much more proactive in notifying residents nearby proposed projects such as the ones that we've been discussing in the future. I do suggest that we give this to the solicitor for some overlook, maybe tightening up some things. And I say that partially because he's a former state rep, so he will understand, I think, some language that might be helpful. And then we can also look at, some potential legislation. The other piece, and I would not say this excuses the CRMC from doing everything that you talk about in here, but I did get an email from, and I think, Deb, you may have gotten the same email from Ben Getch today. They have launched a soft launch of a listserv for aquaculture projects notifications. I did put my name in there as a test today. I haven't gotten anything back yet, or at least not since I left the house. I haven't been able to check. So I don't know how well it works and won't know until they have a project they want to notify people of. But at least it's a tiny step. It's not solving the issues that have been brought to light in terms of notification, but it's a tiny step forward. But I think this is good.
Well, I will make that one. I made this comment before and I'll make it again. I used, and as Representative Edwards said, I looked in his book that he gave us and I got the CRMC's website. And when I sent an email to them, it got rejected again. So I called them and I got the girl that takes care of this stuff. So what we ended up having to do was she sent me an email, which I responded to, and that got me on the list. So I don't know what the problem was with it. It could be me. I don't know.
Well, I will say I did use that email and it worked. So I don't know
Well, I'm
either,
on the list.
but this is different than that.
Yeah.
This is a
This
a
is
very
supposed to be
quick
different.
entry. You put your name, email address in, and it's supposed to put you on their active listserv.
I'm on their list now, I know that.
Could we also send this to the Harbor Commission for review? Have Mike look at it, but also the Harbor. Sure.
It no doubt needs to be smoothed out. I have no problem with that.
Bruce?
And I think you're absolutely right, Mr. Edwards. The Harbor Commission has received these notices and we advertise them and post them in our commission and such. It is extremely frustrating to me. The coastal has their regulations and what they are doing with aquaculture has pros and cons. As was said by the gentleman who was consulting one person who wanted to put aquaculture in Nanaquaka Pond and over across the way in the Winnissimmet, basically Anchorage. Said everyone likes my oysters, no one likes my oyster farms. And I analogize it to go have a steak and then take a walk to a slaughterhouse. You'll never eat steak again. But CRMC is an advocate for oyster, for aquaculture. And I have been with Mr. Getch and his predecessor trying to say you need to give written notice to people. And they don't, they're just like, well, where? I mean, they say zoning is only 200 feet, or our things are all 200 feet offshore. It's like, no, you're abutting somebody. Your waters come to the shoreline of somebody that owns property. It should be in writing. You're changing the use of this from a multi-person usage, recreation and commercial and non-exclusive to an exclusive commercial utilization. They'll tell you, you can paddle your kayaks through it. Well, fine. You can paddle your kayaks through it. You better not take your powerboat through it because your propellers will get tangled up. It is a difficult issue, notification and getting them to change the regulations. I'm glad you're doing that. That's something I've been butting heads with them about. And anytime they come to us, they're doing it to get quote unquote public input, and they're using us as a venue. And that's what's, that's the difficulty that arises with it. So that's, if you're doing that, by all means, that's the way to do it. You have to do it administratively and make the argument that you're taking a piece of public water and giving it exclusive private commercial use to somebody. Now, so it's an actually interesting takings argument now. Your brain sort of spins along on what you're doing. So I think I applaud you for that effort, quite honestly.
Bruce, I'm gonna give you this now.
Sure.
And then when you have your next meeting, you can
Put it on
just, yeah.
our agenda.
Why send it to you when you're standing right in front of me? So we'll make a motion to send this to the solicitor and the Harbor Commission.
Yeah, I just have one other
Sure.
comment. And I don't know, Bruce or anybody else in the room, if you have any, and I don't know what the requirements that the governor will look for, but I did read in, I believe, today's paper that the chair of the CRMC stepped down. And so there is at least one opening on the, I know it's hard to get on, but if anybody has any suggestions, contact the governor.
Yes.
I looked up Suffolk County, New York. I used to live in the town of Riverhead on Peconic Bay. That's more like our days than I think anywhere else, probably in the world, certainly in the country. I'll send you the link about how different their New York State's or Suffolk County regulations are than Rhode Island's. It's just dramatically different. 1,000 feet off. Have to notify. Many.
That'd be great.
So I'll send you the link.
Yes, please do.
Yeah,
That'd
send
be
it to the
nice.
clerk.
Yeah, and then she'll send it to all of us.
Yep, which is exactly what I'm after.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'd like to entertain a motion to refer this to the solicitor and the Harbor Commission for comments.
So move.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Edwards, seconded by Councilor Burke. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Jay. Deb Hagan, Nantucket Neighborhood Association requesting a public meeting with the Town Council, Harbor Commission, and CRMC Bay SAMP Working Group to discuss mapping agricultural development. Hi, Deb, once
Hi.
again.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me have the opportunity to follow up on my public comments at the last meeting. And forgive me, I'm going to rely heavily on my prepared notes. I haven't done any public speaking for a while. I want to thank Councilor Cook for being at the last working SAMP meeting and for speaking up to protect public access and recreation in Tiverton waters, and also Councilor Edwards and Councilor Burke for following up with the public notice after that meeting as well. So as you already know, the Nantucket Neighborhood Association has made a request to CRMC to have Nantucket Pond mapped as an exclusion site on the Bay SAMP based on a long and established history of recreational use. Recreational use has increased over the past few years, and while there are over 40 or so houses that line the pond, the people using Nantucket Pond aren't just the residents who live there. They're public users seeking a protected waterway to kayak, swim, sail, paddleboard, fish, water ski, jet ski, and a lot of folks just come in, drop a hook, and hang out on the water for the day. And if any of you have never taken the opportunity to spend time on Nantucket Pond, please do so. Lori Wood, who is my friend and neighbor across the way, extends an open invitation to spend a day with her family touring the pond on her pontoon boat. Her family has deep roots in this community, and she would love for any of you to take her up on that. And the point is that is for you to come and see for yourself what we already know, and that is that this town has something special to protect. It's not just Nanaquacket Pond, it's public access, recreational use, and the scenic quality of all of our waterways. CRMC, as you already know, is charged with conflicting tasks to preserve and to develop and define the balance between the two. The development is coming. That's the whole point of the SAMP. It's to figure out where to put the oyster farms. If I'm looking at DEM's marine fisheries map correctly, Tiverton's waterways north of Stonebridge are restricted to shellfish harvesting. So I don't think the farms can go there. And if I'm wrong, I would like to be corrected on that. But if you follow roughly along the shore from Stonebridge south to Little Compton at Almies Creek, that leaves about 7 miles of Saconnet River coastline and Nanaquacket Pond as sites for development. Nanaquacket Pond is about 1 mile long north to south and about 1/3 of a mile across down in the southern end where I am. Nanaquacket Pond, both the Saconnet shoreline and Nanaquacket Pond are areas with residential development, established recreational use, and there's a wildlife management and conservation area down off of Sepauwett Point. So the question is, where do the oyster farms go? Again, I'm not saying don't put them anywhere. I'm saying, where do you put them? I think it's important to take a look at Jamestown. And if we do, I think we can get a glimpse of what could possibly be Tiverton's future. Small oyster farms are becoming bigger farms. Dutch Harbor is getting developed to the point that the oyster farms are not only competing with recreational users, they're competing with each other. Residents are asking CRMC, when is this area going to be considered saturated? When is the development and expansion going to stop? I'm going to send you all a link to the May 11th CRMC semi-monthly meeting, during which approval was given to expand the Seakist farm. And I think that it's enlightening to watch. Mostly because the town of Tiverton has an opportunity that Jamestown did not have. And it's an opportunity that hasn't been taken in the past in response to, in particular, the 2 Nanaquacket Pond applications that have been submitted in the last decade. We have an opportunity to be proactive in the development of our waters. And I feel the town needs to do more than simply have knowledge that an application has been received by CRMC. It's in the town's best interest to secure an active role in the application process so that Tiverton residents are sufficiently notified and afforded an opportunity to express both objection and support. Participation in the process is paramount to direct the imminent aquaculture development to sites that minimize impact on residential communities and public users. A memorandum of understanding and harbor management plan that address aquaculture and the town's role in that process are essential. And we are asking you to start that process in a manner that is both timely and urgent. And we ask that residents are included in the process by holding forums for public input. And I'm going to end with this request, and that it's a big ask, and it's for the town to ask our state representatives to intervene and impose a moratorium on aquaculture permits in Narragansett Bay until the Bay SAMP is complete and approved. At that May 11th CRMC meeting, the Jamestown Town Administrator asked for such a memorandum. And CRMC responded that the application process takes 9 to 12 months and that any applications received during that time will be directed by the parallel tract of the Bay SAMP. I say that's not good enough. It doesn't address the 2 pending applications in the Saconnet. And I believe that Tiverton needs a plan in place for responsible development before the development begins, not after. In addition, CRMC is receiving scrutiny at the state level. House Bill 6525 calls for the reorganization of CRMC because of its actions in regards to marina expansions in Jamestown and Block Island. And the Attorney General has called out CRMC for not following procedure and making closed-door decisions that violate the public trust. In this light, any approvals that pertain to the public trust should cease and a moratorium on aquaculture permit approvals instated. Thank you.
Any comments from the council?
My only comment on the last piece about the moratorium is, again, similar to what we were just talking about, is timing.
I understand.
While they will be coming back into session for some very specific reasons in the fall, my sense is they would not take up this. So the earliest, I think, and I turn to Mike from his experience, the earliest anything would be complete with that would be at the end of next session, which would be June of 2022. So that's not going to solve that part of the issue. I'm not saying I disagree with you. In fact, after reading a lot of the materials, hearing some of it, I love oysters, and I'm not saying anybody doesn't who has been advocating it to think about the aquaculture sites, but I also really think it's important for all of the other activities. So I think that this may be a good option, but I just think the timing is off. And I'd be curious for us, I mean, I have no problem with some public meetings myself, but I want to make sure that the SAMP is on board with it, because we can hold all the public meetings in the world, but if they're not there, that means they're not listening.
Well, I think it's clear that CRMC is not going to grant that request. I believe they've made that clear. What I'm suggesting is a public forum for the purposes of an aquaculture address section to a harbor management plan.
Tiverton Harbor Management Plan.
Yes, the Tiverton Harbor Management Plan. I've only recently started reading other towns' management plans, not to digest the minutia, but to get an understanding of how comprehensive they are. And the ones that South Kingstown has one, Charlestown has one that I've read, and I've started reading North Kingstown's, and they lay out policy and procedure for the towns and how the town interacts with CRMC during the permitting process. It
That
gives
would
the
be up to
towns.
CRMC though, on whether they would allow that.
I know, but we have to ask, right? And I think that Donna at the base AMP reached out and said, CRMC has somebody who works with towns
they'll give me
on
the
harbor
name.
management plans.
They work with Charlestown, and they worked with Portsmouth. Portsmouth is very happy to get this moving along. Might need help. The group might need help, and they have an expert, and they're willing to have them work with our Harbor Commission and get it going.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. That would have to be something, I think, that the Harbor Commission would have to initiate.
Well, if I may, both the Charlestown and the North Kingstown harbor management plans list the different representatives from a town and the different commissions who worked together to create the document.
But I would think it would have to start with the Harbor Commission.
Take the lead.
Don't you?
Take the lead.
They would have to, there's Bruce again. Poor Bruce, he's never leaving tonight.
No, I have lots of reasons to do so. Yes. Good evening, by the way.
Hi.
By the way, I came back with
Nice to
the
meet you in person.
Yes. We were in the midst of a major rewrite of this in January of 2020. And we were meeting at the yacht club and such on Saturday mornings. And COVID hit. And we, to try to put that together. I'm hoping, there were two gentlemen on our committee that were good technologically. You get me in your computer, the first thing I do is freeze it. I'm capable of doing it at a whim. But at any rate, one of them is left, but maybe I can get him back, come back involved. That was Greg Banner. The other one is Jason Claremont. They're both very computer tech savvy. And we have one gentleman, Andy Sundberg, who I've actually got to reach out to, because I think he, like Professor Lawrence, didn't see or lost track of the idea that he's got to resubmit and say, yes, I want to stay on the Harbor Commission, because he's also very technologically savvy, because we worked extensively with Kevin Cute is his name, down at CRMC previously. And yeah, the harbor management plan needs revision, partly because technology has advanced from the first, the original draft of it, that we don't need now to put charts in it. We can say, look at your charts on your chart plotters and that kind of thing. But also to address the agriculture thing, because it is a frustration. It's technology overtakes you sometimes before you realize it.
So in terms of time frame, if you were to pick up where you stopped in January of 20, how much, and start at August 1st? I'm just picking it.
Well, I have to get people back.
Right.
One of the problems with
everybody's out on their boats
commission right now is
That's what you guys do.
We have a meeting Monday evening of next week. That I've got to post, but I will be in the Gulf of Maine delivering vote up to Maine. So I texted to Dave Stewart, and he said, I'm going to talk to you about that. So I'm a little concerned. One of the issues that we had this month was the fact that we didn't, on the 4th of July, decide to have a meeting on July 5. And then we bumped into the fact that town had one Zoom meeting, one Zoom account, so we couldn't meet.
Yeah. So just in terms of, but if, regardless of whatever the date is, from picking it back up to a decent draft for us and whoever else to review, whoever has to.
Extensive effort. I don't want to make a false promise at this point in time. We've talked about trying to figure out meetings and whatnot, how to configure it now with the ability perhaps to get together. We'll be able to do that more, and I think we pick that up in the fall, to be quite candid with you. And it's going to be, in the past, we would meet for 4 hours and get through 10% of it.
So your commission is 9 members?
Yes, it is.
And I don't know how many are active, and now you have a new one.
That's right.
Who I think is very much wanting to jump right into this type of a project. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
There's a lot more to the Harbor Commission, really the Harbor Management Plan, that's simply.
Oh, I know, I understand that. I understand.
It's an empty
Very
site.
extensive report.
No, I understand that. But do you work off subcommittees, or do you just do it as a full
We do it as a
committee?
committee. We're 9 people.
Okay.
The idea of breaking it up is difficult.
I would just suggest you think about that, that maybe, 2 or 3 people take different components, then come together. That might expedite it a little bit, and then you'd still have that opportunity for everybody to have their input. Because I do tend to agree with what Deborah said, is that there is some criticality to this, but also knowing that it's a complex project. If we, in doing it, we want it to be done right.
Anyone else?
So, are you open to this expert to come down and help out? Huh?
His name is Kevin Cute.
That's right.
C-U-T-E.
Yeah.
And I've met with him, spoken with him in the past many times. We know one another well. And absolutely, to have Kevin get involved again is not a problem.
Yeah, Portsmouth was thrilled with, his help,
He
so.
can be very, very helpful.
Yeah.
No question about it.
That'll help.
And I don't know if you were in the room when Dr. Lawrence, the professor, mentioned about Suffolk. He can get us.
That's correct.
links to it.
He sent me the link and I couldn't open it, and I sent it back to him, so he's going to either give me another link. But yeah, they have more extensive notifications. It's been something I've been banging heads with Coastal about for a while. And he fortunately had the time to research it.
Just be aware that I've read the Charleston Harbor Management Plan, all 208 pages of it. Yeah, it's not a small.
Right.
It's not going to be a small
But
document.
it's an easy read, though. It's
And
nice.
I think we do well to think about the fact that if these two, well, one of these aquaculture farms has been approved, one is pending approval, and if it gets approved, and I bet you it will, these farms are going to tend to want to go where things are happening, where they have been successfully put in. So there'll be more, and it'll be coming quick.
Well, right. So that's why we need some work done on this. Do you agree? That's why we need some work done on this.
I think we need to
So
get
we
going on
can,
it.
let's not fool ourselves here. Once you get past the high water mark, you're no longer in charge. It's coastal. And coastal, it's your proposed regulations trying to get the legislature to tell coastal to create a regulation. You then are, if you get the legislature to say, do that, then you have to get coastal to act on the legislation's response. And so I agree with you that it should be there. And certainly the Suffolk data will be helpful, will be guidance, but it's not going to happen overnight. I doubt the legislature would actually try to write rules for CRMC. Now, I can stand corrected by the solicitor, but I don't think that's going to happen. The CRMC and DEM are both very zealous advocates of their authority and their power. And that's part of the problem.
It's absolutely true too.
You know, that's part of the problem.
Okay. Any other comments?
Not a comment, but related. I did promise Representative McGaugh I would mention something she sent me yesterday, that on August 12th at 6 o'clock at the Tiverton Library, there is an introduction to aquaculture. I don't have the whole thing open, a discussion with local agriculture experts. So I'm going to forward it to you right now and you can share it. And maybe Dave,
August what?
Dave, if you can put it on the website.
August 12th at the librari. It's at 7 o'clock, I think. I got
This says 6 p.m.
Aquaculture
Okay.
101.
6 p.m. I got the same thing.
Yeah, you may have. Probably something
It's a
separate.
Thursday.
Okay. Let me know if you don't get it, Joan.
All right, Deb?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate the time.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay. Almost done. Administrator Carter, update on on-site water wastewater transfer of management and programs.
So upon the transfer of the authorities to me, I was confronted with this little mess that's sitting on Marsh Road.
I don't think people know what's happened with this.
So apparently this has been a long
No,
standing.
no, wastewater, like why you have.
So
I don't-
wastewater was, on-site wastewater is a function of the community. Tiverton responsibility to deal with septic matters. There is the Tiverton wastewater district over a number of years, I think it's been about probably 8 to 10 years, has been managing our on-site wastewater on behalf of the town. Due to a budgetary matter this year, they could not do it, so it has fallen on the lap of the town administration. And there are a number of issues with this transfer of authorities to us. I mean, I gotta get the software program over here, I gotta get the wastewater pumpers to log into it. So there's a number of things that need to happen. We'll be taking on all the loan programs for the on-site wastewater, repair systems. So it's a little bit of a daunting task, but the biggest issue that I'm finding is the failed systems that have been delinquent for a long time. I've had DEM oversight on them that has really gone nowhere. And there's a system at the trailer park on Marsh Road that is in significant need of repair. And they pretty much put the town on notice that we've got some heavy responsibility with this. So I'm looking for a little bit of guidance from the council as to what it is you would like me to do, but it's, I can bring the parties in to have a discussion with them. And I can bring DEM to make sure that, there's at least a little bit of authority behind some decision-making. But this can no longer continue the way it's been going on. There's kids living here and there is, solid waste on the ground.
It's the responsibility of the owners.
It is the responsibility of the owner, but apparently it's been dilatory for a number of years and it needs to be corrected.
Now, the trailer park, people who live there don't own the land.
They don't. There's and I'll get the creation of the property ownership when I meet with the owners, but I think there's a home ownership that manages the actual property. I don't think it's one owner, I think it's a group. And they obviously charge rent to the clients, but they need to have infrastructure for proper water and proper sewage. And from what I'm understanding, both are failing.
So can we just,
So, well, we've been put on notice, so we now need to take the next action, so.
well, let's state the obvious. You can't live there anymore.
Down there.
That's a pretty tough decision, because
Right,
there's about,
but
there's
I mean-
about 100 people living there, so.
And
Right, but
there
if
was, it looked like they also had done an application to do like a group surge for the whole
They
100
did,
people.
many years
but-
ago.
But it's now expired, correct?
Yeah,
So there was a USDA grant that was available for them, and I don't know what the number was, but the money sat dormant for like 5 years. And they couldn't get their act together to get the systems designed, installed, and implemented within the time frame that USDA was willing to grant to them. I'm not so sure USDA is willing to come back and help them again, which is a problem.
So whose responsibility is it? Is it the owner, but what owner? The owner of
The
that,
land.
that property or of the whole land?
So I think it's the owner of the property where the trailers are. So if there's a home ownership group and they own that land and they collect rents on behalf of that land, they're the responsible.
It's them, not the individual
The individual
family
trailer
who
owner
lives
is
there.
not the responsible party.
Because they rent that space.
But the problem is that the facilities are so deteriorated that it is an unsafe, unsuitable living area that needs to be corrected. So I'll take whatever action that I need to take on behalf of the community, but I want you to be aware of it before we start going down this road, because it's going to get, if you think agriculture was loud, this is gonna be just as loud, so.
So just keep it, I don't want to keep it on that particular property because the.
No, I get it, but it's a whole process of.
The agenda item is just to transfer the management of this whole program, so
Right.
before we get into individual properties and complaints.
the nature of the,
No, but it's not on the agenda.
No, I get that, but because I wasn't sure how I wanted to broach the subject, because it's.
Typically, in a mobile home park,
Oh,
the park is owned by somebody.
Right.
He rents out lots.
But and I also understand it's not the only parcel in town that has this kind of problem, so
well,
it's.
let's just do one at a time.
Right.
So I think, and I don't know if you all agree with, you need to meet with the owners
do.
and try to figure out who's
And I
responsible
need
for it.
DM to be at the table.
Need
as well.
DM, and DM may give us no choice but to say they can't live there. So, and the Board of Health, I mean, we don't even know how bad that is.
Has anybody met with them so far?
So wastewater didn't meet with them, DEM has met with them.
So they're aware of the
But
problem?
they're sending the notice to the town that we need to be the ultimate hammer.
Because they want to give
So-
up their.
Right.
Yeah, so do you all agree that Chris needs to
Yeah,
meet with them
absolutely.
and figure out who actually owns it with DEM there? Because it might not be the town that has to make these bad decisions. They may have to tell
I'll
us.
dig into this further, but I just want you to be aware that this whole bringing on-site wastewater back into the town is not going without issues.
Right, but I think maybe next budget time, we have to think about whether or not we need to hire a part-time worker to help him with this.
We can't wait that long.
Well, we
See, part
might-
of what Chris hasn't said yet, and I think he will eventually, is part of this thing is we need to identify all these properties, wherever they are.
Yeah.
Particularly the ones with,
Well, didn't wastewater have this?
particularly the ones with cesspools. Now, we fired wastewater.
We didn't fire
We
didn't fire
Okay.
It's a
wastewater.
mutual decision.
We've absorbed the responsibility to do what we had them doing.
Wait a minute, I want to make this clear. They came to us and said they didn't want to
Okay,
do it
but
anymore.
they're gone.
We didn't absorb it.
It's us now.
They were not
I
happy
don't
with,
want responsibility.
no, they were not happy with the budget that we gave them. So they came to Chris and said, you're in charge of it now.
And
let's
they
be on
did
board."
not submit a
We are now in
budget.
charge.
Right, and they did not even submit a budget, by the way. They were not happy with the money we gave them.
Okay,
So,
but the
no, but
point
it's
is,
true.
We have to manage it now.
We do.
Right,
And we need to give Chris the tools to do that, and that may mean a clerk sooner than next year.
well, Chris needs to come to us and tell us.
I will, once I get the assets
help
and
we need.
infrastructure over
And
here.
this will be a union position, so we'll have to go, this is not just hiring a clerk.
Can I just suggest something? That we consider whether or not, at least in the short term, we can contract with some entity that will provide this service to us, at least to get us through the next 6 months to a year, and then we can evaluate more fully what our needs are.
I'll see if it's out there and available, but I'm not so sure there's a service out there that will do this.
There may not be, but
But my question is, didn't wastewater have a list of these properties? Because they were in charge of this.
They were, and they should have a list. My other issue is I need inspectors to go out and actually do the inspections. It's-
Right.
Yeah, so it's a little bit more than,
So we're taking over wastewater stuff.
we're taking over
So-
the role of what was their on-site wastewater role.
So there's no longer wastewater?
Oh, there's
No,
still.
no, there's a wastewater district that only deals with sewer. Only deals with sewers, nothing to do with
septic
on-site.
tanks is what we've absorbed.
The on-site wastewater is a function of the town. It's not a sewering district mandate.
But
They were
took-
doing it on behalf of the town with some monetary budgetary allotment, but they were
But
not
what-
satisfied with what that was, so they opted not to do
But
it.
let's make it clear, they wanted to take that over. They're the ones
They
that
did. No, I
wanted to
agree.
take that over at the time.
So should they use porta potty in the meantime?
So that's a DEM question, because I'm not so sure that that's gonna be suitable either.
well, because you have all sorts of wastewater is brown, is gray water as well.
Gray
Sinks.
water,
Right.
yeah.
They do say in here that one of them was told not to run their washers into there.
Well, it's,
Or not to do laundry, I should say, not to do laundry.
do they have wells?
I'm assuming they have,
not-
well,
This is a big problem.
It's not only laundry, it's also their sinks, kitchen sinks,
Right,
bathtubs, all of that. It's all
No, but
gray
I'm just
water.
saying, they said in here, no
Right.
Total
laundry.
violation of the rules. You can't-
Right.
You know, you're gonna have a separation between a septic
Yeah, but
tank
there's
and
no
a well.
water that goes,
I don't, there's water that goes up Pokemon Road, so
Is town water?
Yeah, there is town water on Boogamush Road, yes.
yeah, but did they pipe into this?
I
though?
don't know. That I
That's
don't
been there a
I
long
don't know.
time.
But
Like my
even though if the water
development
was in
piped
there,
into it.
even if water was in there, the water infrastructure in the park itself is also failing.
Right. I think it's important to know like what really
Yeah.
is there. We have no
Yeah,
idea.
I just want you to know, it's a huge undertaking to,
Well, we're gonna get you help, but I
Well,
think.
no, I get that, and I
I think step one
They
is
won't
to
see
figure it
sewage
out.
for Probably 40 more years over
so, and I
there.
think that's to Mike's point, is to, let's try to come up with some process on, that we're all comfortable with on how these things
got it.
go through, what process we should be going through, so. I'll draft something up and I'll get back to you for your next meeting, I just want you to be aware of it.
Yep,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay,
I think the next is the chief,
so we don't have, there's no action.
there's no action.
No action.
Next one is Administrator Carter, Police Chief Jones, approval of budget transfer, 2,500 from account 3330-7611, gas to account 3330-7950, IT expenses.
Yep.
That's pretty self-explanatory, I think.
Yep. Full last fiscal year.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Motion been made by Councilor Perry, second by Councilor Janet. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Councilor Di Madeira's discussion and possible vote on an advisory subcommittee and members regarding FTR and personnel changes advisory committee. So we didn't get any volunteers for this, guys. Except, Joan, Mike, the treasurer, and Chris need to be involved in this. And we thought we'd do a subcommittee where 2 or 3 members would meet with them. Mike has some suggestions, Joan certainly does, so does Chris, and then come to us with these suggestions. And this would go on the ballot in a year from now. So, who would like to be, who's interested in doing this? Okay, so Jay,
I'd be happy if nobody else.
Mike, I can have a third or not have a third. Okay, I'll go with those 2 then. And then if one of them can't come, I'll be like a substitute. How's that? I'll be the alternate.
Who's on the committee?
Mike Burke, Councilor Burke and Councilor Edwards.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Announcements, comments, and discussion, town administrator, updates on DPW and town farm efforts.
So I know that recently we had the opening of the new playground, and there, I know a number of you were there, but not everybody was there. And I did want to make special mention of the work that a lot of the DPW employees had offered to help with that, because it was a very big lift on their part. They did a lot of the groundwork that. But I'd like to mention that it was Jody Tripp, Harry Cookingham, Rob Byron, Cody Carpenter, Ed Mello, Darren Lynch, Dave Rigo, John Ferrara, and actually Sue Richardson and Director Rogers were also involved, and Joe Pacheco, who no longer works in the department, but for their efforts. And they put a lot of effort in to make sure that that was done appropriately.
It came out beautiful.
Come on, that's a really nice job.
And it does get matched as part of the grant, so, but I know we recognize the police and fire a lot, and very rarely do we ever get to mention the DPW at times, and other than a major snow event or something like that. So they did a phenomenal job, and it's only phase one. There are 2 more phases to it, and they'll continue doing that kind of work on behalf of the town. But I think it was important to at least mention them. They are very valued contributing members of our workforce. So.
I also have to say, for the Grinnell's Beach project, they were really helpful too, and Rick was down with all his men several times to help us get that completed, and Joe saw their efforts, and they do come through when we ask them to, so thank you.
Can we get him to weed?
Yeah, I know, we gotta go down there and weed, you realize that, right? I almost did it the other day.
I know.
Federal and stimulus money.
So I'm gonna give you an update on where we are. Just, I know there's some confusion out there in the public, especially on social media. We've just received our first installment of what would be our municipal piece. We'll receive the same amount in FY '23, about the same time. So we received $819,644 is the very first installment. There'll be a marry up to that for next year at about the same time. So altogether, that's about $1.6 million. And then there's a county piece that we'll be receiving of $3,042,000. And we don't know when we're going to receive the first installment of that, which will be $1,521,000. So for this year, we'll be receiving approximately $2.3 million. Now, next year, again, we'll receive the same type of monies. And I'm not sure exactly what the dates will be, but it'll be about the same time frame. It'll be from summer to early fall, for a total of $4.6 million.
But there's guidelines to
there are specific guidelines for that, and working with Treasurer Charette, we do know that we have approximately $2.6 million in lost revenue. Most of it's attributed to FY 2020, and most of it obviously is the gaming monies. Most all that monies can be used for general governmental purposes. So we can use that for the things that we deferred. When we looked at the budget and we knew we were in trouble, and we said, we're not going to do these capital projects, and we're not doing these critical, non-critical expenses in both FY 20, FY 21, and probably in through FY 22. We'll be able to utilize about $2.6 million without, we'll have to report to the feds. There's a state liaison who was just appointed this past week, who will be managing this on behalf of the state. We'll have to put a plan in together with them. We'll get approval. We'll spend it according to that plan. But the issue is going to become the balance beyond that. So of the 4.6 million, and we've got 2.6 million in lost revenues, there's about $2.1 million that has far more stringent criteria to it. And there are some things that we can do infrastructure-wise, whether it be broadband on behalf of the community, public safety, but there are also other things that you might want to consider, whether it's assisting, some local businesses for their loss, for getting them through some of this COVID stuff. There's a whole litany of things that are available that could be utilized, and every community is being asked to have public forums. And some of the communities have actually put forth either like a Survey Monkey or something out on a social media to try to garner information to gather public interest, and then they'll be holding public forums. And by then I'll have better guidance for you as to specifically what categories. There are 4 major categories you can utilize those funds for. Some of it is infrastructure, some of it is for COVID-related mitigation, My suggestion is that we should really be cautious and hold some monies for COVID-related mitigation, because if this revisits us, we're gonna be, we can't spend it all at once and not have monies to help mitigate, like having additional inoculation periods or, booster shots or whatever it is that, the state thinks that we should be doing as far as mitigating the illness. But I'll get you more of that information later. I just want you to be aware of what monies were available, and this is just for what we would consider the municipal side. There are additional monies coming, and I did look up. It took me a while to find this because it's not on any of the state websites. Actually, I had to go through some of the federal websites and through some of the national education websites, but the town of Tiverton is receiving on ESSER 2, which monies were approved in December of the end of 2020, December of 2020, 763,000, and there's an ESSER 3, 1.7 million
That's
coming in.
schools.
Those will go directly to the schools as educational grant aids, and they can be used to strengthen their core instruction, their student support, community outreach, learning losses, capital expenses for HVAC issues, for technology, for high quality instruction and professional education. So there are a number of things that they can use those things. So they got $2.4 million coming to them as well.
When are they getting
That I couldn't get the actual dates for.
Does the school department know the
And
actual
it
date?
wasn't on the RIDE website where all their money should be coming through. But I'm sure the schools will have a full accounting of those, hopefully, as those monies
I'm hoping
appear.
it's soon, because they can help their debt.
It should help them with some of their issues that they have, especially with their learning loss programs that they are in desperate need of as well.
Yeah, there's not as much, from my understanding, wiggle room, if you will, like you would say, for general government.
No, there's not.
losses that we have on the town side, but there is still some opportunity.
And I think that that's because most communities are required by law to fund your education based on what their educational plan is for that year, that budget. And very similar to our debt service, we pay our debts. When we have loans, we pay them, and we pay our education. So whatever loss mitigation in revenues was eaten totally on the town side of the budgets. That's why there is that wiggle room on the town side versus on the educational side. But they do have some wiggle room, but it's strictly related to educating students, as it should be. And I agree with that.
So what do you suggest? We have public
I think at
forums?
some
What-
point, again, we will have public forums
Okay.
on this federal money that's coming in so that everybody has a methodology to participate, and that the council has informed messaging so that you can make an informed decision.
So you're suggesting though the survey before the public forum?
We do. But I'll try to get that guidance still more refined so that we can make our, and articulate a better messaging for them to give valid input that's not,
I don't believe how long it's taken us to get
I'll
the
send you-
guidelines.
Well, the guidelines are just now starting to be
Right.
fully published. I mean, the monies really didn't come about until July anyhow. So it is a work in progress, and I will say that the League of Cities and Towns will begin next week holding they'll be having meetings every other week from all the communities to find out how it is that they're representing their public and what they're getting back for suggestions.
I'll send you the FAQs I have to see if they have them or not.
I have a 42-page frequently
I
asked
have
questions.
The federal register guidance and stuff.
Okay.
So Chris, do we have to apply for these ones?
We've already applied. I've already applied for them.
Well, the
We've
school has
received
to
it.
know that.
I asked that during our application period, because I didn't want it to be missed for them. So that if it was a ministerial duty of doing the application, I tried to ensure that it was done. I was told that that's totally in the RIDE department and the LEA, which is local educational authority. So that was up to them to do it.
When the funds arrive, where are they going to be put?
So right now, the $819,000 that we have are sitting in what would be like a grant account that's designated federal stimulus money.
Restricted.
It is totally restricted monies.
Yeah, they have a web-based application process for all their federal aid, so I think they're using that for this purpose too.
And they'll be treated like grants, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Town clerk, update on FTR.
This will just be a brief update. There were 119 voters over the 3 days, the 2-day early voting and the FTR on July 17th. and that also includes mail ballots. The budget proposal, as recommended by the Budget Committee, was approved, as well as all 6 Budget Committee resolutions and the 3 Town Council resolutions. That's it.
Thank you.
Anybody that's interested, that's 0.1% of the voters.
That usually happens when there's only one budget. That's why we need to look at this.
And not that I advocate for a financial town meeting, but our last financial town meeting had 1,000 voters at it, actually a little over 1,000.
Okay, so we're now going to go into closed executive session. I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session. Town Administrator, Rhode Island GL 42465A1, Personnel Job Performance Annual Evaluation for Tax Assessor David Roberts, notice given.
So moved, so moved, yes.
Okay. Town Solicitor Litigation, Rhode Island General Law 4246582, discussion of case status for Tiverton v. Lee Shore Realty et al. Shore Road case number NC 2016-0462. Town Solicitor Litigation, Rhode Island GL 4246582, discussion of APRA case status for Katz versus Town filed on June 28th, 2021. Town Solicitor Litigation, Rhode Island 4246582, discussion of case status for Diane Farnsworth et al. v. Tiverton et al. Case number NC 2021-0209. Town Solicitor Litigation 4246582, discussion of case status for Katz v. Tiverton et al. Case number NC 2120-116. Do I have a motion?
So moved,
Second.
yes,
Motion made by Councilor Perry, second by Councilor Vieira.
yes.
Councilor Perry, Councilor Cook. Yes. Councilor Janet. Yes. Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor
Yes.
Burr.
Yes.
Councilor Vieira. We're now in executive session. I'm going to take